Chapter 274. Pain. So much pain. South Korea SKT Club training room. The vast space was empty except for Lee Shanghae, sitting alone before a computer. The cold light from the monitor threw hard shadows across his tightly furrowed brow. He let out a low sigh that sounded sharp in the silence. "Aish, is that the last game?" he muttered, but there was no one to answer. After being swept 3-0 by NXG at the World Championship, and to avoid offline fan events organized by OGN, the team manager had given the players an early, extended break. Some went home, others went traveling. Only he stayed behind. Defeat still hung over him like a weight. He had nowhere urgent to be. At home he'd only play ranked anyway, so he stayed where the training environment was more professional and the free drinks were easier to reach. Benji had planned to stay. The way the jungle had been read and exploited at Worlds left him racked with guilt. He wanted to duo with his mid laner, hoping familiar teamwork could dull the bitterness. But then a phone call changed his mind. An older woman he'd met at the venue invited him to travel to Zhangjiajie. Faced with his brother's silence and the distant invitation, Benji hesitated, then scratched his head and mumbled an apologetic sorry to Lee Shanghae. So Lee was left alone in the room. Gulp, gulp, he drank cola after cola. The fizzy bubbles burst on his tongue, but left only an indescribable astringency. Why does today's cola taste so bitter? He had never feared failure. From an eager youngster stepping onto Summoner's Rift to a pro on the big stage, his path had been paved with thorns. He'd survived rookie mistakes, stage tuition, and opponents' deliberate targeting. He'd been confident, sure that victory would ultimately belong to him. Then NXG showed up, and everything collapsed. Against that team's suffocating dominance, SKT's proud teamwork and his own skill couldn't find a seam. In the 3 final games, they were handled like precise puppets, helplessly crushed. The sting was worst in the last match, when JM, the man Li Shang had come to see as his greatest rival after his seniors' defeat at the Shanghai All-Stars, stood up and left early when victory seemed within reach. JM's glance as he passed was cold, calm, and almost disinterested. That look cut deeper than anything. It hurt more than friends or family abandoning plans, more than 1,000 small betrayals. From that moment, Li Shanghae carved a vow into his heart. No matter how much sweat, no matter how much hardship, he would win that back. He wanted JM to take him seriously, but fate has a way of complicating vows. When the news came that NXG would quickly disband, the flame of revenge that had driven Lee's relentless practice suddenly had no target. He felt an emptiness, like something important had been gouged out of his chest, leaving only a cold wind. No, JM was still here. As long as that man remained, regardless of how NXG reorganized, the essence would still be there. The only one he needed to beat was JM. "Start the game, start the game, start the game," came a string of insistence in the client chat. Chin Huan, with the NXG.B prefix, spammed question marks. "Norsha player, please create the room." A referee's voice from the arena cut in, professional but urgent. "Norsha player." The second call was louder. Song Yuan, who'd been joking with his teammates, snapped back to attention and noticed the flushed face of the referee behind him, trying to suppress anger and maintain composure. Sorry. Opening it right away, right away." He fumbled with the interface, red with embarrassment. He'd been so busy clowning around, he'd forgotten it was his turn to host for the blue team and create the lobby. He pictured the referee reporting him to Ming-Gae when she returned. Both referees today looked like temporary part-timers from Jingji culture, his boss's people, and they clearly knew Ming-Jae well. No, why the panic? He inhaled and forced the unease down. "Haji Song, you signed that massive contract. Your life and death isn't NXG's to control anymore. Ming-Gae can report me if he wants. I'm legally C9 now." He half laughed to himself. Behind them, the petite, pretty referee puffed out her cheeks and made a quiet note on her report sheet. NXG team top laner exceeded room creation time limit. 1 violation. At that moment, the BP horn chimed and the main screen flipped to the band pick interface. "Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Nest National Electronic Sports Tournament, League of Legends event. I'm the caster Miller." "Hello, everyone. I'm Bella." Miller and Bella manned the main desk. Xiao Xiao had been assigned to the secondary stream by Jiang Ming, an unavoidable move. Nest was a large official esports event supported by the General Administration of Sport, The main broadcast needed a more measured tone. Xiao Xiao's signature passion might stir unwanted reactions on the main stage. The first game's BP officially begins. NXG won the coin toss and chose sides, taking blue for themselves in Game 1, Miller announced. And on the purple side is NXG taught black, Bella added. They deliberately avoided terms like NXG first team or second team to keep it accessible to casual viewers. The bans came quickly. NXG banned Use Oriana, while the black team removed Aatrox, Miller said. Both were obvious counters to each team's comfort picks. NXG's second ban is Spider. Don't let Seeker through, Bella explained. Seeker is definitely black team's tempo initiator. Letting him have Spider, a champion known for aggressive early ganks, would be terrifying. Milmi, why does the female caster sound biased toward NXGB? NXG first team are the S3 champions. How strong can a recently promoted LPL team be? Isn't that an exaggeration? You two are clearly new fans. Didn't you see the prefixes during the finals? I did, but aren't they all NXG team? What's the difference? There's a big difference. The 3 NXG squads are very close in level. Internal scrims often go full BO3. No one has a guaranteed win over anyone. Here's the key. Could this female caster be one of Zhangboss's people? She seems to know both teams inside and out. Holy cow, really? The chat scrolled, but it didn't slow down the field's tight BP rhythm. The 2 NXG squads knew each other intimately, so their draft phase moved like clockwork. Blue team first pick locks Renekton instantly, Miller called. With both sides so evenly matched, early tempo had become everything. The blue team decided to give Haji Song a lane bully who could pressure and secure an early lead. Renekton, the butcher of the sands. Take teleport, White Crescent said calmly in team voice comms. We still need to limit Qin Guangguang's development in the early game. Having been through many battles with Jiang Ming, the former single-minded coach had grown meticulous in his tactics. He had already imagined potential counters and reminded the squad accordingly. All right, love you, Dad, Xu Jing replied with a grin. Against the white team, the top half of the map would be under serious pressure. Against the black team, the real battleground was the bot lane. Qin Guangguang was devastating in teamfights and exerted a lot of lane pressure. He wouldn't stubbornly insist he could handle everything alone. Chapter 275, Finals, The Mysterious Sleepy Man. The opponent locked in Renekton. Guangguang, how about we go for a late-game 4-1 split push? In NXG.B's team voice chat, Long, unusually assertive, put the idea forward. Qinhuan nodded. Okay, that works. Playing a standard comp probably won't be enough to beat Pang Pang and the others. Pang Pang? Xiao Duan, sitting to Qinhuan's right, stole a quick look at his AD and couldn't help but hum a bar of White Album in his head. Qinhuan, oblivious to the tiny drama playing out beside him, kept his focus on the draft. Let's lock in our 2 carries on the first and second picks, he said into the mic. Tabe, who had transferred in, stood behind the players like a silent mascot along with the black team's assistant coach. This finals draft was more a showcase than a strategic battleground. The club's tactical system was highly integrated from academy to first team, so the coaches didn't need to micromanage every pick. This match was about on-the-spot performance and execution, with occasional flashes of individual inspiration allowed. For a 4-1 split push, the top laner would be the linchpin, so the coaches wanted to guarantee the carries first and leave top, jungle, and support flexible. In their system, the jungler and support were crucial for coordination and roaming. The carry's job was simpler: farm steadily and provide firepower at key moments. The pick screen lit up. For the purple side, the first 2 selections were the Bandle City pilot and the Spirit Fox from Ionia, Corki and Ari. Miller's voice rose in surprise. Wow, NXG.B picks Corki and Ari. No wonder NXG first team reacted fast, Bella said. They answered with Jarvan 4 and Annie. That's a heavy engaged jungle support combo. With Renekton already in the draft, the blue side's dive potential is massive. Their aim is obvious. They want to pin down Luster and blow him up. When you're facing Jarvan and Annie, there are counters, Miller added. The black team grabbed Blind Monk and Zyra in the 3rd and 4th picks. Smart. Both handled Jarvan engages and Cataclysm decently well. Bella chuckled softly. NXG's mid lane is about to turn the game on its head. Locked in. Vladimir. The commentators' reactions were measured. Pre-rework, Vlad lacked the one-shot burst of later versions. His core still revolved around converting health and AP, with tides of blood building stacks and scaling his heals and damage. Still, Vladimir in the mid lane signaled a plan: scale into a devastating mid to late game presence. With Vladimir secured, the blue side completed its carry duo by locking in Caitlyn, pairing perfectly with Annie's long-range setup. Caitlyn plus Annie on the bot lane meant tower sieging and lane dominance would be a nightmare for the opponent. Han Jun, the black team's jungler, massaged his forehead at the monitor. Fine, fine. I'll be a shielding blind monk in teamfights. I'll save my ult to peel for our carries. Don't expect me to kick their backline. The difficulty of getting to both Vladimir and Caitlyn in the middle of a fight made Han Jun grimace. Chat lit up. Old Han is crying in the bathroom, someone joked. Continue with weapon? Sure. The purple side's final pick slid into place with a cheer from the crowd. Here he comes, Jax. Miller's voice brightened, a hint of relief in it. This is the secret weapon NXG kept for the fourth game of the S3 World Championship. Instantly, the broadcast chat exploded. Some viewers who'd missed the earlier series suddenly realized why NXG's finals had been so one-sided. NXG had swept 3-0, and that decisive run had denied everyone a fourth game, meaning countless fans' mains had missed the chance to be featured with a championship skin. The livestream's comment feed became a cacophony of mock-sobbed outrage. Ah! My Jax just missed a champ skin because SKT didn't force a game 4? SKT, I'll hate you forever. Why pick Renekton? Jax was way better. With the Weapon Master pick complete, both teams locked in swaps. The final matchups appeared on the big screen. Blue Team NXG, top Renekton, Jungle Jarvan 4, mid Vladimir, AD Caitlyn, support Annie. Purple Team NXG.B, top Jax, Jungle Lee Sin, blind Monk, mid Ahri, AD Court support Zyra. The director called for a camera cutaway. The lens swept across the arena, the BP screen, the focused faces of the players, the roaring crowd, the team's backstage areas. Then the producer shouted, "Stop! Cut to the NXG lounge." Copy that. The camera slid into the NXG lounge where a young man in a suit sat slumped on the sofa, eyes closed, breathing slow and steady. He leaned back as if in a deep nap, his chest rising and falling with a quiet rhythm. The scene froze on him for a beat. The finals chaos framed around one solitary sleeping figure. Chapter 243, I Really Hate Prodigies. The backstage feed of NXG flashed across the Nest broadcast like an accidental cut from a staff member's camera. It lasted barely 2 seconds, but that was enough to ignite chaos in the live chat. Where did this come from? Is this still the Nest finals? Isn't that JM sleeping? Get up, no sleeping during finals. Young people are lucky, can fall asleep anywhere and sleep so well. Shocking, the owner of a famous LOL club actually shows such contempt for his opponents in the grand finals. Oh wait, both teams in the final belong to his club. Guess that's fine then. Whichever team wins, JM profits. No wonder he can relax. No one expected Nest calm since opening and only rattled earlier by NXG knocking out OMG to blow up twice, this time over JM, who hadn't even played. The real surprise was that the flashpoint was the NXG boss himself, the legendary S3 champion and LPL icon, caught sleeping in the finals lounge. Ahem. Miller cleared his throat and deliberately ignored the backstage footage the director had cut to, using his voice to drag attention back to the stage. From the announced lineups, both sides have brought an unconventional setup. How effective it will be depends entirely on the player's execution. The loading screen is up. Audience friends, give them all your energy. Come on, make some noise. With the finals underway, Nest's popularity spiked. Between the last dance of the S3 champions before disbanding and the so-called NXG Derby, the arena erupted. Miller's prompt sent a wave of deafening cheers through the venue. The battle music swelled, the screen brightened, and a decayed Summoner's Rift appeared for everyone to watch. Ding! The match began, and the two NXG squads immediately launched into a dazzling signal game. From minute 0, their map callouts, formation changes, and alert pings came in such rapid succession that even seasoned viewers were overwhelmed. Stop! The signal density is insane. My head's buzzing. What are they even saying? How do they have so much info the second the game starts? And both teams are actually reacting to it, not just doing random stuff. Can anyone explain? I just hit Platinum 2 days ago, and I can't parse NXG's opening at all. As an Ionia Diamond 3 jungle main, I'll try. Take it easy on me, chat. A volunteer jungler in chat tried to break it down. At level 1, the left side had Annie with a wide W stun zone. Normally, the blue side would invade Purple's jungle, but Purple's team had strong level 1 brawlers. E on Jarvan, Fox's Charm, Zyra's Knock, plus heavy poke from Lee Sin and Corki. Neither side wanted to force a fight. What looked like hesitation to viewers was an intricate tug-of-war. At 1.5 minutes, when many expected a calm opening, a ward the blue side placed outside the blue buff wall spotted an intruding Lee Sin. "Stone, Lauhan warded your blue," came the call. "Yeah, saw it. If they swap jungles, they're probably going to swap lanes too." The blue side's move was a deliberate ruse from Coach Pang Ran. All 3 early wards were concentrated in the top half of the map, while the bottom half's vision depended on pushing and scouting. Picking Renekton and Caitlyn, 2 strong side laners, put the opposing purple team in a bind. Would blue commit tempo to top or to bottom? In the level 1 skirmish, the blue side eked out a narrow advantage. Jarvan had already pathing into enemy blue. Lee Sin, lacking vision and information, slowed his clear. The crowd and the professionals watching the stream were once again reminded of NXG's terrifying coordination. In a lane swap game, junglers swapped sides, top laners started on mirrored camps and recalled, and laners waited for precise minion counts before committing to lane pushes. Both top lanes endured symmetrical pressure under their towers, ADs pushing and poking, supports harassing. The minion wave management alone was enough to make analysts who'd faced NXG back in Worlds groan. No wonder the tempo always felt off. Wave control in lane swaps is a whole different calculus, someone muttered. A few minions difference, and the top laner can't fight back. If he does, he gets collapsed on. And when you have more minions, tower pressure is on another level. Strategically, Purple wanted to suppress Renekton early to enable Weapon Master, while Blue accepted the swap because Caitlyn needed fast tower plates and items to offset Lee Sin's early danger. Caitlyn and Annie had lane presence but lacked mobility. Against a bottom jungle combo of Lee Sin, Corki, and Zyra, a small slip could spell a disaster. To push towers, Caitlyn had to shove the lane, so the swap was tolerable for both sides. Shi Zhenyu watched the jungle. His Jarvan's pathing today was chaotic in a very deliberate way. After taking the enemy blue buff, he returned to his side for red, skipped the Gromp, cleared the 3 wolves, and then used an EQ combo to vault a wall into top lane. Song Yuan's Renekton had cleared a mirrored triangle, enabling a quick pressure pattern. The Lee Sin invasion of the top jungle had been expected, and the purple team still had vision there. She was trying to adopt a Mala Xiangguo-style unpredictability. Don't play by the book and force the opponent off script. Han Jun, the purple jungler, was more methodical, control-oriented like the old Ming Kai, planning before acting. But Seeker, another jungler mentioned by the analysts, mixed carry aggression with map control. MXG's unpredictability had been their advantage. The only reliable counter was to stop playing textbook. Stone's Jarvan went a really odd route, a commentator noted. Instead of babysitting Caitlyn, he EQ'd over the wall to top. That's fine. Both Caitlyn and Renekton need time to scale. Blue is protecting Renekton for early dragon fights, another said. Corki and Zyra didn't notice. There aren't many minions in front of the tower. Xiao Duan and teammate might be in danger. Move now. Perfect timing. Zyra's warding right now. Such discipline. The moment the support stepped away, Corki backed off and didn't give Lao Song an opening for the quickness W. Rumors and praise filled forums, but only by watching did spectators truly grasp the terror of NXG's 2 teams. They'd inherited NGX's full set of strengths. The crowd outside could call for an all-in, but only players on the field could confirm whether Zyra was actually gone or faking a retreat to bait a premature summoner spell. Go. A low-health cannon minion became too tempting for an AD to ignore. Qinhuan's Corki, greedy for the last hit, turned and fired a shot, exposing that Zyra wasn't beside him. "Witness my might," someone shouted on the map. Jarvan planted Demacian Standard and launched Dragon Strike in a golden streak. Clad in golden armor, he leapt like an arrow. Bang! A flash behind him. He went in. EQ the quickness, right on Corki. Miller's voice rose, but before he could finish, the replay froze everyone in stunned silence at the commentary desk. On Jarvan's Dragon Strike trajectory, Corky had already vanished. Two golden flashes of the quickness, braided in a flash of light. The commentators and the live audience let out the same involuntary gasp. He dodged it. Corky dodged Jarvan's EQ, the quickness, someone cried. What level of reaction is that? At the player's desk, Shizenyu watched the Corky slip his EQ in a heartbeat and sighed quietly. That's why I really hate prodigies. What speed? That quickness. Is that reaction even human? Holy, I can't dodge Jarvan's regular EQ combo, let alone an EQ followed by a flash. Is this the legendary prodigy? The chat exploded. I used to think NXG first team's talent wasn't as high as the black and white teams, but after this, how could they be worse? They stomp everyone else for a reason. Another viewer joked, so the real hotshot in NXG is Jiang Ming. Jiang Ming's macro teachings had spread through the region, and viewers who'd watched plenty of matches immediately shifted their focus to bot. Sure enough, just as Jarvan showed up top, the black team's Lee Sin had already arrived in the river. Caitlyn and Annie retreated in unison. Longjae, hold them, someone called. On it, Zhu Xiaolong answered. Playing Jax, he reacted instantly. Counter-strike activated, leap strike to a distant minion, then immediately the second cast of E, stunning the NXG bottom duo in place. The casters went wild. Insane Jax play. He leaped to a minion and stunned both targets at extreme range. Lee Sin, who'd rushed in from the river, didn't hesitate. He used his mobility to close, safeguard to Jax's side, then Tempest to catch them both and apply the slow. They traded perfectly. Annie turned, used Pyromania to stun both pursuers, and body-blocked to protect Caitlyn's retreat Sturath, while Caitlyn fired a 90 caliber net to slow Jax and prevent him from re-engaging. Lee Sin timed it perfectly. Sonic Wave hit Annie. He followed up with 2 autos under turret, and the kill went to him. First blood. I'll take this one, Hanjun said. Go ahead, Zhu Xiaolong shrugged. A jungler getting early tempo was exactly what Jax wanted. More items, more pressure. In NXG's system, no player was a fixed sacrifice. Resources went to whoever the team needed at the moment. Jiang Ming drilled that into the squad. Take resources and convert them into combat power. If you grabbed gold and did nothing with it, your score dropped. While the bottom skirmish flared, Jarvan didn't stop up top. After helping Renekton clear the wave, he flashed down to mid to pressure Corky, forcing his flash and then backing off. It wasn't about a kill. Vladimir couldn't finish a kill with jungler help early, but about easing his laning and keeping the team's mid carry from being suffocated. The stream chat could hardly keep up. The tempo's relentless, someone typed. My head's spinning. No wonder the white team lost before. The black team was defusing targets wave after wave. Now I get it. Jarvan forced Corky's flash, another added. Annie and Caitlyn used abilities to escape bottom. Jax's minion leap surprised them. If NXG can exploit these forced flash cooldowns, they can snowball. NXG's rotations were surgical. After recalls and item buys, Jarvan headed back to top. Stoneji's priority was clear. Babysit Renekton early and keep shutting down Corky. Corky, as an early mid-game carry, can't be targeted non-stop without losing his item timings. Dragged to late game, his teamfight output lags behind Caitlyn's. Seeker, refreshed by First Blood, bought another Doran's Blade, and even began to look into invading Jarvan's jungle. The game felt like it could tilt at any moment. Then commentators Miller and Bella suddenly cried out, "Wait, when did Renekton teleport down?" Perhaps unused to a teleport-heavy top, they missed the moment at first. Song Yuan's Renekton had been self-sufficient. Unlike Jax, who needed his jungler to babysit the tower, Renekton cleared the minion wave under turret, recalled for cloth boots, and then teleported near the tri-bush by the purple team's bot lane, right where he'd planted a ward during his roam earlier. The turret was at sliver health. Caitlyn fired the last shot, and it exploded. As it fell, Jarvan surged in with EQ. "He's dead! Jax is caught!" shouted the desk. Counter-Strike blocks autos, but it can't stop Renekton's ruthless predator stun. Caitlyn followed with a trap. Crowd control was chained flawlessly. Renekton took the kill in exchange for the teleport cost. At 7:30, the kill score was tied 1-1. Chapter 245, The Changes NXG Brings to the LPL. At the same time, EDG, having just finished assembling their roster, was holding its first team meeting. After seeing NXG's success, Idaju drew up a simple plan. Copy NXG, only bigger. Instead of recruiting 5 random players, he signed established stars so he could begin at a higher level and have a shot at surpassing NXG. He brought in jungler Ming Kai, AD carry Nami, mid laner Van, and support Wan Mao. The only open spot was top, which would be filled by a newcomer. The implementation was equally straightforward, military-style management. Training volume didn't need inventing, just mirror NXG's schedule. Accommodations, meals, and player welfare would be benchmarked against NXG's standards. Of course, they would add their own touches. Player health and recovery needed attention, imitation with improvements. In the meeting room, Ming Kai and Wan Mao sat watching the Nest Finals live stream, thoughtful. Factory, NXG style looks like it would suit us pretty well, Wan Mao said first. It has potential, Ming Kai agreed. Fist is going to nerf Ignite next season, so top laners can ditch Ignite. Top jungle coordination for a 4-man dive on bot will be far more reliable than a jungler going alone. But Black Team's jungler has insane reaction speed, Nami, who was next to them, blurted out. When Jarvan and Renekton started, he still managed to escape with a Lee Sin ward hop. Ming Kai, who had been thinking about a bot gank a second earlier, narrowed his eyes. Was she talking about him? His thoughts raced. JM's right. Ganking bot alone won't win the game. You have to deal with the top laner too. Let bot farm. After the dragon spawns, we'll move the fight to the bottom half of the map. What Zhang Ming didn't realize was that his brief all-star partnership and NXG's tactical shift had already influenced Ming Kai's personal style. The player who had once preferred to gank bot was now thinking differently. That was exactly the point Zhang Ming had hoped to make. By experimenting with new season strategies on a big stage, NXG would push the LPL to evolve. EDG ganking top at level 2? It didn't sound impossible anymore. At the Nest venue, Zhang Ming woke from a nap to find the first game halfway through. Blue team had taken the bot outer turret and quickly rotated toward the river. Top and support started Dragon, and Jarvan, seeing Lee Sin tank Caitlyn to clear a wave, slipped into the enemy jungle to steal the newly spawned ancient golem. Finish Dragon and fall back. Old Shu, come mid and help defend. Blue team's Yihan shouted into team voice. Black team responded fast. Corki and Zyra traded a turret in top, and Xiao Duan left Corki to farm and disappeared into the fog of war. In that gap, Yihan was caught by Ahri mid. She used Spirit Rush to dash in and unleashed a full combo like she wanted to all in. With most of his teammates still on bot, Vladimir found himself isolated. Vision in the top half of the map was missing. He couldn't confirm where Annie was, so he didn't dare fight and had to back away. Avoiding the fight was exactly what Ahri wanted. With 3 dashes, she poked mercilessly, RQ auto Q auto, threading in abilities and autos to slowly chew down Vladimir's health. He wasn't in immediate danger, but the ripple effects were disastrous for blue team's rotations. Because Yihan's mid HP was low, Caitlyn and Renekton, who should have returned to buy, had to go mid to clean up the wave. Yihan had to recall, then sprint up to top to deal with Corki's pushed minions. The fluid rotation blue team planned was torn apart. The commentators filled the silence with analysis. Both teams' fundamentals are insane. Even with constant skirmishes across the map, both NXG squads are keeping extremely high CS numbers, one said. Exactly. CS differences between the two ADCs are single digits, and the top laner's CS is still solid enough to survive pressure. The live chat and forums exploded. Players everywhere were picking up on the same lesson. Minions matter. Ranked players joked and admitted they'd learned to treat minions like lifeblood. Kills can be sacrificed, but a denied cannon minion was treason. After watching Zhang Ming's videos, a lot of people had that lightbulb moment. 20 minions is roughly equal to 1 kill. Fundamental mechanics had become a hard threshold for pro recruitment. Beyond CS, fans noticed other shifts. NXG's emphasis on image and professionalism, players getting haircuts, washing before matches, wearing clean team apparel, changed perceptions. Talking about esports as an industry instead of a basement hobby suddenly felt normal. Coaching staffs became more professional, managerial roles evolved. Supports, once considered low-priority 5th picks, were suddenly seen as strategic commanders. NXG's style elevated the support role and made macro play aspirational for lower-ranked players trying to learn. But perhaps the biggest change wasn't tactical at all. It was commercial. A comment scrolling by captured it. NXG didn't just win championships, they taught clubs how to monetize attention. Jiang Ming had been a top streamer long before he entered pro play. With his influence and his academic background, a Jinling University standout, he could have taken many comfortable routes: streaming income, a mainstream career, any number of paths that look like traditional success. Instead, he dove into professional esports at a time when the scene was still stigmatized. Dark basements, smoky internet cafes, players living off noodles and prize money, teams shuttling on cheap trains with tiny sponsorships. NXG shattered that image. Jiang Ming understood young esports fans' tastes and integrated e-commerce with esports culture: team merchandise, branded products, sponsorship visibility. When NXG landed a seven-figure sponsorship in the spring of 2013 and made headlines, it was a turning point. Back then, when the LPL debuted in 2013, it marked a milestone for Chinese pro play, but the industry still had major structural problems. Chief among them was weak financial footing and a lack of sustainable revenue models. Some teams had sponsors, but most relied on a single backer. NXG's example changed expectations and accelerated professionalization. The S3 Championship and All-Star wins brought massive attention, yes, but their deeper legacy was showing clubs how to build a business around esports. That lesson, more than any trophy, had been what truly pushed the LPL into the fast lane. Chapter 2 of 79. Only JM and his new generation NXG can defeat NXG. The cruelest reality of early esports was the lack of attention. In a society that labeled wuxia stories spiritual pollution, video games were treated like a flood of moral panic. Parents feared them, outsiders scorned them. Even when the real causes of teenage internet addiction lay elsewhere, explanations fell flat against public prejudice. No attention meant no commercial value. Without funding, teams could only wither. In the original timeline, Team PE, backed by the two major guilds, China and Royal, had finished runner-up in the LPL spring and taken the summer championship. What did that amount to? When sponsors pulled out, that top team couldn't keep its roster and was eventually relegated. In 2013, a club's annual operating cost, including salaries, was about 2 million yuan. Income, however, depended almost entirely on prize winnings. A major tournament's championship payout was only 400,000 to 500,000 yuan, plus meager streaming revenue. The industry's ability to withstand risk was paper-thin. Jiang Ming's sudden rise ripped a hole in that iron curtain. The appeal of a top streamer, the rare badge of being a Jinling University honor student, and the identity of entrepreneur and club owner collided, producing a powerful reaction. It brought a massive new audience to League of Legends esports and began to overturn the public's instinctive aversion. Esports started to be discussed as a legitimate phenomenon and even a possible career path. Jinling University's decision to set up esports research programs gave the wave crucial academic endorsement and social legitimacy. Industry development is like a snowball. If it starts rolling right, it becomes unstoppable. If not, it's hard to recover. From NXG's all-win streak in the LPL spring to their stunning presence at the Shanghai All-Stars, and finally to the peak showdown at the Staples Center in S3, everything looked like fate's best gifts. Although Jiang Ming's intervention didn't ultimately prevent Team PE's disbandment, it did create far better outcomes for the players than in his previous life. That subtle change gave the industry a glimmer of hope toward professionalization. Domestic esports management had been chaotic. Clubs often ran on a simple team leader-coach-player model with little division of labor. Team PE, nominally independent as WE's second team, had long shared resources, muddying managerial responsibility. That lack of oversight is why later transfers could get stuck for ages. Even after the league cooled and players drifted out of the scene, contracts still chained them. Transfers relied on personal connections instead of rules. One of Jiang Ming's most consequential moves in pushing LPL standardization was to make the transfer market transparent and institutionalized. That reform didn't just address the scene's immediate contradictions, it laid a foundation for the league's long-term stability. Of course, that was only the start. Chronic salary arrears, no youth training systems, a void in player cultural education, and crude professional image management, these problems were still pervasive. NXG, the model student of League of Legends Esports, had already drawn up answers. Whether other clubs would copy them, and how well, remained to be seen. Back to the match. Up in top lane, Vampire and Ahri were locked in another fierce duel. Had Seeker's Blind Monk not arrived in time, Vampire might actually have pulled off a solo kill. The crowd joked over voice chat. "Yihan's on fire today. You've changed, Yihan. You've gotten dangerous. You even try solo kills now." But the change was real. After the World Championship, the biggest transformation in NXG was confidence. The players had shed excessive worry about talent gaps and physical limits. Their operations and decisions grew more decisive and aggressive. That slightly reduced overall stability at times, but as Song Yuan observed, it opened up a new ceiling for the team. For top professionals, when a familiar path has been pushed to perfection, sometimes a change of direction is the only way to leap higher, to break through a bottleneck and reach a new peak. Game 1 was a roller coaster, with several dramatic swings that had the audience at Nest holding their breath. When the black team took first blood with a precise mid-lane jungle combination, everyone expected them to seize tempo. Instead, NXG responded textbook perfect. They destroyed the opponent's bottom outer turret, took the first dragon, and snagged kills in the process, instantly turning a small lead into a 1,500 gold advantage. Just as it looked like NXG would control the map, a sudden clash in top lane reset the balance. The black team's mid and jungle collapsed on NXG's Vampire out of position. Seeker's Blind Monk followed with a striking sonic wave, and Ahri finished him with her ultimate, like pulling the fans back into the contest. The realization rippled through the crowd and the Twitch chat. NXG wasn't invincible. People had just never found the right way to punish them before. When the broadcast cut to the NXG team lounge and lingered on JM's calm, almost languid face, the audience nodded. The lines that had once been mocked as Versailles boasting, like "my NXG players aren't naturally talented," now read like honest footnotes. Or perhaps the discomfort came from their own club's second team, NXG's nominal rivals, tearing into NXG's defensive setup with frantic aggression. The more the team on the purple side flashed individual brilliance, the more NXG's first squad on blue pulled the tempo back with precise coordination. The most breathtaking moment was the mid-lane offensive-defensive transition. The black team's mid and jungle had just wrapped up a top-lane kill and looked to press their advantage in mid. NXG's Jarvan 4 immediately flashed in, EQ combo into his ultimate, locking down Zyra and setting up Annie's Tibbers for the perfect follow-up. Zyra, who had leaned into the mid-brush to ward, was melted in seconds. More importantly, NXG's jungle and support answered with a swift counter-gank, forcing the assisting Ahri to burn all 3 charges of her ultimate and eliminating the black team's chance to convert the skirmish into tempo. In Summoner's Rift that night, every brush held a threat and every ability trade could tip the match. From a bird's-eye view, the two teams mirrored each other's decisions and mechanics. To the audience, it was a study in tactical chess between top squads. The clash showed a rare deadlock. The black team's flashes of individual brilliance were reliably countered by NXG's coordinated resets. At the center of it all, JM and his NXG, calm, confident, and ruthlessly precise, remained the standard everyone else was trying to meet. Chapter 280, No Longer Even Acting. Wow, the Vampire coordinated with his teammates to force out the Fox's ultimate, and when Yu's team arrived, they fought their way back in and took the third segment. The Weapon Master popped Counter-Strike to hold them, but the Crocodile answered with a W to stun him and ate the damage instead. Corki's Phosphorus Bomb dealt huge damage. The Prince turned it around with an EQ, and the Blind Monk ward jumped back at the limit. No one died, not a single one. Extreme kiting, truly extreme kiting. Amazing. This is the first time I've seen a team fight like this. Are they using health lock hacks? The skill synergy is perfect. One tanks, another fills in, then they can actually retreat after trading blows. My heart is in my throat. These two NXG teams are walking a tightrope. The chat exploded with astonishment while the match remained razor close. At 16 minutes, the gold difference was only a little over 1,000. Neither side had drafted a classic late-game comp. The blue side had a Vampire and a Caitlyn, but their split push was weak. The purple side's fallback was the Weapon Master, but Corki and Fox didn't scale into enough sustained output for late fights. So after the first towers fell, control of neutrals and jungle resources became the subject of constant, brutal contention. The first major shift came at 17 minutes during a dragon fight. The purple formation, positioned better, secured the dragon and forced the blind monk, who had kicked into the pit attempting a steal, to use the quickness to retreat. But because their focus was on the dragon, the blue team's formation temporarily fractured. Caitlyn's using her long-range advantage to poke from the edge of the pit. The dragon is about to be smited. Seeker's dragon steal failed. He flashes back. Oh no, NXG's top and mid players push too far forward. The vampire's ultimate hits the backline precisely, but Caitlyn's too far from the core of the fight to follow up. The vampire has blood pool, but what about the crocodile? The weapon master stuns the crocodile, the fox follows with charm, the black team focuses fire. The crocodile. It's down, instant kill. Miller's shout punctuated the broadcast as the blue team's front line collapsed. Hanjun had not charged in recklessly. His ultimate kick sent the vampire who was trying to W for damage away from the fight. Then, while the prince's EQ combo knocked up the weapon master, Zyra's ultimate was planted perfectly and cut off Caitlyn's firing lanes. The black team is going to win this team fight. 2 for 4. The purple side, the black team, came out ahead. Because the blue AD was still alive, the black team couldn't immediately use that advantage to break mid-tower against a long-range Caitlyn backed by a bloodthirster. Still, that winning fight let the Fox and Corki catch up in farm and gold. In the mid-game, the black team began grouping more actively. When they couldn't shove mid, they rotated and kited, trading their top first tower to secure the blue team's bottom first tower, and even managed to catch Shujing's Caitlyn during an invasion of the red side jungle. Is NXG really about to be overturned by the black team? Viewers wondered. But the roles flipped in another crucial contest at the Dragon Pit. This time, the purple side's formation was the one to break. Zhu Xiaolong's weapon master initiated, but Pang Ran's Annie didn't back down. She flashed forward and W'd, stunning 3 of the black team's backline. Xu Jing's Caitlyn cleaned up and got a triple kill. At 27 minutes, Caitlyn had finished Bloodthirster, Static Shiv, and Last Whisper, fully online. Facing that Caitlyn spike, the black team, whose kills had been focused more on the Fox, found their sustained damage lacking. More importantly, the weapon master's development had been stifled. After 2 decisive team fights, most of the blue team's golden kills were concentrated on the Crocodile and Caitlyn, while the purple side had sunk their resources into their top laner and AD. The weapon master was always the vanguard, diving in and contributing, but he died too quickly and only picked up scattered assists. Meanwhile, Songyu's Crocodile on the blue team, now a pure tank with 3 kills and Sunfire Cape plus Spirit Visage, could not be threatened by the weapon master in a split push. With poor lane control, the black team had no answer for Caitlyn's siege and couldn't trade resources effectively. 5 minutes later, at exactly 31 minutes, the blue team's turret advantage let them snowball. Their economy leapt ahead by 3,000 gold. What a shame, it was so close, Miller lamented. The black team's mid-game teamfight mistake gave NXG the opening. But that's exactly the sharpest sword in the hands of these 5 door players. On screen, Shujing's Caitlyn, tightly protected, methodically chipped down the purple team's buildings. Emotionally, Miller wanted the black team to win, a rivalry of generations, challengers versus the established first team. If the NXG black and white squads were the future of the league, the most satisfying script would be the black team taking the crown directly from the old kings. Below the stage, Zhang Ming listened to Miller and shook his head with a knowing smile. He had already sold the NXG first team players for a tidy sum. If the second team overturned them now, sponsors would cry foul. People would whisper that NXG had bought its roster and was rigging results. The future belonged to the black and white teams, but as long as the first team still existed, the throne couldn't be snatched. Besides, Jiang Ming himself was listed as a substitute mid laner for the first team. If the charity of the younger squads toppled his veterans, where would his face be? How could he continue to mentor those talented, still undisciplined youngsters? So a week before the finals even began, Jiang Ming had started special training for Pang Ran and the others, and after the narrow victory in the first match, he had slept and recharged, then decided he wouldn't just sit on the bench. He would play. Suddenly, the chat exploded with question marks and accusations. "You're playing favorites. Hakiming. Get off the stage. Isn't this just bullying the honest kids? Black team, so we're the clowns now? We're from the same club. Why are we treated like stepchildren? Jiangming, what do you know? If the second team really beats the first team, who'll pay top dollar for our champions later? But wouldn't NXG ever sell Jiangming? Nonsense. For the right price, everything's for sale. If not, I'll go play for another team. I'll still be the NXG boss." Heh, love this. Quick, make it harder for the second team. Let them remember who the real king of NXG is. On stage, Jiangming walked out in the NXG jersey. Contrary to the chat's outrage, the 5 players on the black team didn't look upset. They looked thrilled, even eager. How could you not be excited to face the complete legendary NXG roster, with Jiangming himself in command? For them, this match would be a lifelong memory no matter the outcome. Holy cow, Mingge is actually playing? The crowd roared. Across the city, Mala Xiangguo was nearly lunging at his monitor in the NXG base, cursing his mistake in the semifinals. Damn it, how did I fall for Han Jun's trick? If I hadn't been outplayed, we'd be on the finals stage. Because junglers are stubborn and stick to ancient tactics, Death Announcement shot back, merciless. Mala Xiangguo, chastened, had no reply. Around him, Moon and Zhang Hong showed no visible reaction, but Zhao Hao's fleeting disappointment, the mid laner who had missed the chance to face peak NXG, was obvious. In the arena, the fans erupted into a frenzy. NXG! NXG! The cheers filled the Nest venue with a force like a tidal wave. Ticket holders slapped their thighs and raised their phones, recording the historic moment. Viewers streaming at home hit rewind in regret. Why hadn't they bought a ticket? The Nest organizers smiled. An ordinary cup final had turned into a spectacle, and Jiang Ming's stage appearance had become another case study in his uncanny promotional sense. On stage, Jiang Ming smiled and waved to the NXG fans. Then he looked across at the 5 black team players, met their eyes, gave a thumbs up, and called over in a clear voice, "Good luck." Chapter 281, Goodbye NXG, End of S3 Season. The individual skills of NXG.B's players had always been top tier. Even before Song Yuan and the others endured Jiang Ming's year of grueling training, the other 5 simply weren't on the same level. But because they understood their limits so clearly, NXG's 5-man coordination became something like the one mind, one body ideal from wuxia stories. You might suppress one of them briefly, but once they moved as one, the smallest slip in an opponent's coordination was all it took for NXG to sound the counterattack horn. All of this framed why Jiang Ming chose to play himself. He wanted, first, to give the NXG first team a perfect send-off. Second, to expose any problems in both the black and white teams. No great team is forged from scrims alone. Practice matches are always tentative. People hold back or drill tactics. Competitive play, where everyone's truly trying, reveals the real faults. And Jiang Ming's own level? There was no need to worry. Despite managing a multi-million-dollar club, he never abandoned the foundation that had built him. League of Legends. That foundation was everything. He'd seen what happened to people who walked away, losing everything, so he kept his grind going. He kept training, kept his mechanics sharp, and kept his game sense at the top. Maybe one day, JM wouldn't be the mechanically best player in the league, but his understanding of the game would always be elite. The second game of the finals unfolded in a way few outside viewers expected. The fierce clash everyone imagined never really happened. The match became, in many ways, a rout. Some joked online that the black team had gone easy because their boss was on the other side, but watching the match with a bird's-eye view revealed the truth. Not a single member of the black team had held back. Every one of them fought to win. It was simply that Jiang Ming knew his former students inside and out. He knew their habits and weaknesses intimately and how to punish them. Against you, who had strong lane resilience, Jiang Ming didn't switch to a petulant brawl. He picked LeBlanc, excellent at clearing waves and poking, and played to control the lane, whittling Yu's health and lane tempo until advantage was established. Then he and his jungler, Xiao Shito, invaded Seeker's jungle. The pattern was familiar to an EG manager watching from the sidelines, flushed with memory, slapping his screen. "See that?" he shouted. "When we trained at the Shanghai All-Stars, Jiang Ming did the exact same thing to me, kept diving my jungle, never letting me breathe. I couldn't route top, mid, or bot." Benji, watching the stream from Zhangjiaji, laughed and said, "Great minds think alike." Once the mid lane lost wave control, Seeker's jungle began to collapse, first in economy, then in vision and jungle synergy. That pressure radiated out to top and bottom. With the opposing jungle silenced, Qinhuan in bottom couldn't exert pressure, and Xu Jing's laning strength faded. Support Pangran became a third liberator on the map. NXG's mid-jungle support coordination felt like a rocket taking off, suppressing everything in its path. "Wow, this is rough. Mingge really knows Ah Long and the others too well," someone muttered. "As if he wouldn't, he taught them," another replied. "The tactics for both our teams came from Mingge himself. He knows exactly where the weak points are." On the stage, Jiang Ming's LeBlanc embodied a very particular kind of assassin play, one that didn't chase flashy kill counts to intimidate opponents into passive play. He didn't hog resources. While maintaining his own development, he constantly gave up gold and opportunities to set up teammates through repeated roams. As the black team's bot and jungle fell quiet, Long in top, facing Song Yuan, kept showing experience gaps. The gold difference wasn't huge, but NXG's rotations were cleaner and faster. In consecutive fights, Long was consistently a beat late to the folds that Song Yuan had already claimed. That timing advantage, born of Jiang Ming's precise command and Song Yuan's rotational sense, let this iteration of NXG look flawless. By the 27-minute mark, only 9 kills had occurred, but NXG's economic lead had already swelled to 7,000. "This is Gem. This is the real NXG. Against the soul-infused NXG, there are no obstacles," Miller crowed in his slightly theatrical commentary. Then the black team's nexus fell. 2-0. The Nest finals were over. Under the spotlights and falling streamers, Yihan and White Crescent marched on stage side by side. But the 5 players of NXG stood together with faces shaded by a bittersweet solemnity, rather than the bright joy of winners. Their looks, equal parts reluctance and nostalgia, kept drifting to Jiang Ming. They all knew, painfully and clearly, that the name NXG, with all its memories, was ending, and that this leader, the man who dragged them into the professional scene and carried them to heights, was leaving that version of them behind. Sensing their emotions, Jiang Ming turned slowly and let his gaze sweep every familiar face. A relieved, warm smile softened his features. "Remember," he said, voice steady, "in my heart, you'll always be the original NXG, my first generation." He paused, then continued with earnest expectation. "Together, you're one blazing fire. Scattered, you're a sky full of stars. Keep the fighting spirit you had on the Rift, keep that unspoken camaraderie, and go on to shine in your own constellations." "We will, Mingge," Song Yuan said. "We'll see you at the S4 World Championship." "Heh, just wait. Yihan and I will take C9 next year and show those stinky brats from the black and white teams what's what." "You're the only one left on our roster getting loaned out, Pang Pang. You're representing NXG, so don't let us down. Guaranteed." Pangran grinned, and in that promise, there was hope for what would come after the sunset of NXG. Nest had ended. During the championship interview, Jiang Ming, the player who was at once teammate, captain, and owner, gave his most heartfelt farewell. The audience finally learned the full story about their support, Pangran. The good news, NXG still had a support. The bad news, that support would be leaving for at least a year. By the end of 2013, NXG had stretched their legend from the S3 season into another flawless World Championship run, finishing undefeated and closing a glorious chapter. The performance of NXG might be in the finals was remembered by countless fans. If Jiang Ming hadn't personally stepped in on the final stage, their bug-level plays might have rewritten the outcome. Even if the Nest Trophy didn't hold the highest prestige, sweeping both the championship and runner-up titles at a domestic event was no small feat, worthy of a proper celebration. After the match and the fan event, Jiang Ming picked up the bill for an extravagant banquet for the players. The new Nest Trophy was already back at the club, replacing yet another flower pot on the packed honors shelf. another small entry in the club's long-running tradition of limited space and outsized achievements. With the year's competitions done, NXG entered its pre-holiday mode. Free from the pressure of training, the players drifted out of the base in small clusters to breathe in the streets and alleys of Jinling. Song Yuan and a few others wandered around together, unwilling to leave the base entirely. The first team roster were supposed to go at the end of Nest, but they kept loitering, clamoring to mooch meals until the season officially ended. Jiang Ming let them be. He knew the boys weren't ready for goodbyes and didn't call them out. After all, a few extra sets of chopsticks wouldn't sink NXG. The championship livestream had been little more than a fan interaction session held at the base. The new streaming contract with YY wasn't finalized, so their big debut was postponed. Jiang Ming wasn't worried. If anything, it bought the players 2 more days off. On December 14th, at the base entrance, 5 team members stood side by side. Tomorrow, the club officially closed for the holidays. Today, they came to say their quiet farewell. Yihan, the mid laner, stooped to pick up an empty soda can beside the rusting iron gate and tossed it into a nearby bin. "I never expected," he said softly. "We joined the team around this time last year, and now we're leaving on the same day." "Who would have thought?" Song Yuan laughed, helpless and a little choked up. 5 internet-addicted kids who were scolded at home and looked down on by everyone turned into world champions and millionaires. He remembered his dad almost cracking his belt when Song told him he wanted to play professionally. A year later, his parents were the ones who came to the club to sign him up to go to North America. Xu Jing, usually the loudest of the bunch, had gone quiet. He toyed with the metal mascot doll from the NXG team kit. The cold weight of the metal through his fingers seemed to steady his dazed thoughts. "See you next year," he murmured to himself. "We'll meet as full opponents then." "Don't fall behind," someone called. "We promised. We'll meet at Worlds." "Of course," Xu Jing answered, then glanced toward the kid who sat squatting nearby. "Let's just hope Little Stone doesn't get stuck in some European minor league and can't get out." Jungler Xiao Shito pulled hard at his backpack straps, head bowed beneath the brim of his cap. The shadow hid a wet shine under his eyes. "Be careful," he said in a muffled, nasal voice. "Don't slack off in your new teams. Play ranked to keep your feel. Mingay said once you lose that competitive edge, it's hard to get it back." A cold wind slid through, rustling jackets. Silence fell between them. "How about we go look at the basement?" Pang Ran asked, his voice small but enough to break the quiet. "Our first home." They all turned toward the base, toward memories that started in the basement, the cramped, frugal beginning of everything. On the second floor by the window, Jiang Ming watched the 5 figures until they faded from view. Lin Jingyi, seated on the sofa and sorting documents, called out at the right moment. "If you don't want them to leave, go see them off." Jiang Ming just sighed and shook his head, as if trying to unstick some emotion. "Let them go. Maybe this is right." He changed the subject. "Have the year-end bonuses been calculated?" "Yes." Lin pointed to the payroll on the table. "Here, look it over. If everything's okay, sign and I'll have finance issue them tonight." Jiang Ming picked up the papers and, instead of sitting across, slid in beside Lin. She glanced at the empty seat but didn't move. By now, they were at the stage of meeting each other's parents. He rested a hand casually on her leg as he skimmed and signed. "The year-end bonuses are fine," he said, then thought a moment. "Give each logistics colleague an extra 1,000 in their red envelope." "All right," Lin said, quickly changing the number. Normally, these details were handled by lower departments, but this was the first year for NXG as an official club. Jiang Ming was overseeing everything himself. He wanted to set a tone, humane management, promises kept, and real benefits that reached everyone who worked day to day. In the club's notification group, Lin Jingyi announced the holiday plan with full-on cheer. "Brothers and sisters of NXG, listen up. The year flew by. Thank you for your hard work this year. Here's the Spring Festival holiday schedule and the welfare package. Check it out. Holiday, December 15th, 2013 to January 10th, 2014, 26 days. Return fresh on January 11. 2. Year-end rewards. Bonuses are arranged. They'll be deposited in salary accounts before 18 on December 16th. Check the internal system for your amount." Spring Festival red envelopes. The boss will hand out real cash red envelopes at finance before you leave. Sign for them before you go. Key: don't run off early. 3. New Year's gift boxes. We've prepared gift boxes with nuts, cooking oil, and rice packs, and other practical items. Not expensive, but sincere. Register and pick up at the logistics office on the first floor before work ends on December 16th. First come, first served. IV. Holiday notices. Then Lin tagged Jiang Ming with a flourish and a public thank you. Less than 10 seconds later, the group exploded with messages and notification pings. Wang Wang. Holy crap, how much? 26 days. President Jiang is awesome. Manager Lin is awesome. NXG is my home. Year-end bonus, plus enhanced red envelope, plus New Year's gift box. Triple happiness. NXG is the best club in the world. Woohoo, to the sky. Mingay is mighty. I'll carry the scrims tonight after eating my fill. Death announcement. Don't waste it on food. I'll take it all. Ah, thanks President Jiang. Thanks Manager Lin. 26 days off. I'm going home to lie flat. The nut package is mine. Pushing glasses. Rational analysis. 26 days, plus timely bonus, plus Jiang's add-on red envelope, plus practical New Year goods equals maximum employee happiness index. Conclusion: President Jiang is a god. Enjoy the holiday, everyone. Rest up, and after New Year, we'll go for S4. Don't slack in training before the holiday. Everyone remember to pick up your red envelopes at finance on time. The amount added by President Jiang is guaranteed to be substantial. Jiang Ming posted a short message back to the whole group. You've all worked hard this year. Next year, let's fight together for something even bigger. Little teaser, the new NXG base site selection is underway. We'll soon send out a dream-based survey. What tech do you want in the training room? How should the lounge look? Want a koi pond? Suggest anything. Your ideas are the soul of the new base. The announcement of the new base sent the chat into another flurry. The club had the funds to start construction, S3 World's prize money from Fist Games, new season sponsorships from several benefactors, and transfer income from players moving on, including Pang Ran's transfer, covered initial costs after daily operations. The equity details with Jiang Ming's investors weren't fully finalized, but the money to build a proper facility wasn't a problem. Responses kept pouring in, requests for a coffee shop, a gym, more pets for the lounge, and heartfelt hopes that Aunt Deng would stay as the cafeteria cook. The group filled with jokes and plans. The mood was festive, a mix of New Year cheer and anticipation for the future. NXG Electronic Sports Club's 23rd season wound down in that warm, noisy energy. Applause for the year's achievements, relief at the holidays ahead, and the first stirrings of a new dream, their dream base, already shaping the next chapter. Chapter 283. LPL League System Reform. Shanghai, the conference hall at the LPL new season venue. The second meeting to discuss LPL League System Reform is now in session. After a brief opening from the LPL event manager, the floor was handed to the club managers sitting below the stage. With the new year approaching, players were officially on their off-season, but there was still plenty to be done. The schedule and detailed rules for the 2014 season needed ironing out, and the upcoming LSPL Secondary League required planning. Many of the new club owners were more interested in participation than policy. XM Esports Club, backed by Xiaomi, and a new corporate owner who had just bought a PE team slot were both fresh to the scene and hadn't even grokked the basics of league rules yet. The core of the discussion, though, centered on 4 clubs: NXG, WE, IG, and Royal Never Give Up. Laozhang Pele, manager of BE, started bluntly. I still don't understand why you insist so strongly on getting rid of BO1. Didn't that format work fine this year? More matches means more costs and a longer event calendar. We have to be careful. Pele was genuinely puzzled. Judging by this year's results, Jiang Ming and NXG had been the biggest beneficiaries of BO1. They had swept the spring split and become household names overnight. So why was he now the first to propose reform? All eyes turned to the young man sitting in the front row. There were seasoned business veterans in the room, but no one objected to Jiang Ming taking this central role. His achievements and NXG's standing in the LPL spoke for themselves. Jiang Ming's reply was calm but resolute. BO1 has to go. If we don't reform, the LPL will be caught up by or even fall behind other regions. If a region sticks to BO1, it won't be competitive. He scanned the room, steady and firm. We used BO1 this year because the league was new, teams were limited, and funding was still ramping up. That doesn't mean it's a reasonable long-term solution. Its flaws, he paused, eyes sharpening, are obvious to everyone here. He didn't sugarcoat it. BO1's weaknesses were well known. One-game series are extremely susceptible to randomness. A player's condition that day, sudden mistakes, lucky early plays, or a bad champion matchup can all decide a match. The closer two teams are in skill, the more lethal that randomness becomes. A single misstep can cause an upset that doesn't reflect the true difference in strength. BO1 also severely restricts strategic depth. With only one game, teams must commit everything to a single draft and plan. They can't adjust and adapt the way they can in BO3 or BO5. That compresses the room for coaches' counter strategies, for showcasing diverse champion pools, and for players' mid-series adaptations. For viewers, BO1 is often less exciting. Lopsided matches lack suspense, and potential comebacks or tense back and forths disappear. That hurts ticket sales and long-term commercial appeal. From a commercialization standpoint alone, reform is necessary. How about BO2? OGN uses that, someone from the back suggested. Ideju chuckled. OGN is not the standard we should blindly follow. What have they done that we should copy? Jiangming took the thread. BO2 has its own problems, and I don't recommend it. It doesn't improve viewership much, and it can even reduce teams' incentive to fight for a decisive result. If teams can just settle for a 1-1, why take the risk to go for 2-0? Most of the people in the room had experience working with or competing against Korean teams in other timelines, so they were immune to the instinct to mimic OGN. With confidence to reform, the direction would naturally be one that suited the LPL. So Lao Jiang, how getting cut to the chase, you're proposing BO3? Exactly, Jiang Ming said. Make the regular season BO3 and upgrade playoff series to BO5. That will raise the competitive level in region. He continued, as for feasibility, look at how popular the LPL was this year, the box office at the Shanghai All-Stars, and the crossover effect from the S3 Global Finals. Market feedback is clear. You can count on increased investment in the league, Hu Qiming added with a smile, an extra meaning in his eyes. Everyone knew BO3 would bring challenges, tighter scheduling, longer daily broadcasts, and sharply increased costs for staff, equipment maintenance, and venue rentals. But with more capital flowing in and audience demand for denser content rising, those problems looked solvable. What interested Jiang Ming even more than BO3 versus BO1 was a proposal he'd already floated to Riot. Increase the number of bans in professional matches from 3 per side to 5 per side. At first glance, it looked like he was making life harder for himself, but the move had a deeper purpose. Expanding bans would force teams to broaden their champion pools and deepen tactical reserves. Riot agreed. Even if S4's full changes were phased in later, as champion pools grew and the scene professionalized, 5 bans per side, effectively 10 total, would become inevitable. How about a pilot program? Someone proposed. President Zhang already hosted the Ionia Cup. Why not use the LSPL and the Ionia Cup as pilots? Keep the group stage BO1, knockouts BO5, and run the LSPL regular season as BO3. Side selection, another voice suddenly piped up. What about side selection? The old coin toss is too random and bad for the league's development. Why not decide sides with a 1v1 duel before the match? If we're increasing match intensity, take it to a place where player skill matters more and reduce disputes over match outcomes. And we need to change how world spots are allocated. Someone else tapped the table. Imagine this. PE, runners-up twice across spring and summer, still didn't make worlds. 2 spots were decided purely by regular season points in summer. That seems off. Shorten the format time. Make the schedule denser. Domestic interest is high. No need to push the summer split playoffs into November. Finish before Worlds. What if the spring split champion gets some World Championship points, the summer champion more, and the remaining 2 slots are decided through a gauntlet tournament? Keep the blind pick mode as a special rule for the final game of a BO5. It's highly entertaining. Okay, I have no objections to that. What about promotion and relegation? Another asked. Many potential investors are worried that pouring money into a team could end with relegation and losing everything. That can be discussed later. We can't tamper with the promotion and relegation system right now. Someone waved a hand. We should prioritize boosting the popularity of the secondary league. That helps too. As the club managers debated, the reform proposals gradually lined up with what the LPL had become in the previous timeline, more mature and competitive. Jiang Ming quietly shelved his most radical ban pick overhaul for now. Some ideas were simply too advanced for the current stage. Still, things were finally moving in the right direction. With the meeting wrapped up, Jiang Ming and his senior sister finally headed into their spring festival break. The selection and renovation of the new team headquarters would be handed to professionals after the new year. As for Jiang Ming personally, he'd also achieved one more milestone. He had officially checked off the Visit Future Father-in-Law achievement in his sophomore year. Chapter 284, New Season, Xiao Shito's European Journey. While Jiang Ming was stealing a little leisure time from his busy schedule during the spring festival, Fist, which had been holding back through the transfer window, finally unleashed its big changes for the new season. Fist Games, League of Legends Season 4 Update Announcement. Dear Summoners, Season 4 is about to make a dramatic debut. This will be a brand new season full of innovation and change. We're committed to bringing you a deeper, more strategic, and more fun experience. Below are the main contents of the first version update for the new season. Talent System Adjustment. 1. Removed Summoner Spell Talents. Related effects have become hidden attributes. When a player invests more than 5 points in that talent tree, those attributes are automatically granted. We hope this allows for more diverse talent choices without being limited by specific summoner spell enhancements. 2. Adjusted effects across talent trees. 2. Rune System Optimization. 1. Strengthened rune effects and changed previously fixed rune ratios. We'll gradually add dual attribute runes in future updates. Runes that increase both magic resist and armor, runes that boost attack speed and attack damage, and even runes that give supports extra gold and experience, providing more strategic combinations. 3. Game mechanic adjustments. 1. Respawn time and experience gain adjustments. In regional competitions last year, we observed a serious problem. Excessively long respawn times made it too easy for the advantage side to end games with a single push. LOL Esports should keep more suspense, so we've reduced respawn times to prevent constant one-wave finishes. At the same time, although support players improved after Sightstone's introduction, it's still insufficient. We're exploring ways to compensate supports for experience and gold. After all, a support carrying a game is awesome. Route 2. Summoner Spell Adjustments. Ghost, Ignite, Exhaust, Teleport, Revive. EV, Trinket System Changes. Last season, we introduced a new trinket system to enrich vision mechanics, but it wasn't perfect. In the new season, we're adding a scrying orb that reveals a nearby area for a short time, similar to clairvoyance, helping teams scout bushes or other unknown zones from safety. AD players might be happy about this. Your support won't have to worry about you face-checking bushes anymore. Also, the 7th item slot will upgrade over time. When a trinket reaches level 10, it will gain cooldown reduction and increased power effects. For example, you'll be able to carry Oracle Lens as an item. Control Ward's stealth effect was too strong. We've removed the stealth and given it 5 health. Its price will be reduced, but players can now place a maximum of 3 Control Wards each. From now on, warding isn't just the support's job anymore. Jungle Update and Major Item Adjustments. February 1st, the second day of the Lunar New Year, and the festive atmosphere hadn't faded. On a flight from Shanghai to Berlin, China's Spring Festival didn't mean much in Europe. The new season's drums had already started, and the team had to cut their holiday short. The luxurious cabin was the G2 owner's apology for recalling players over Chinese New Year. They nerfed everything NXG excelled at, Xi Jing complained, scrolling through the update he'd downloaded in advance. They didn't even spare the turrets. Xiao Shito, your Atrox got hit. Atrox did have pretty inflated stats, Shi Zhenyu said calmly. A small nerf from Fist isn't the end of the world. He sounded unruffled. Mingay warned me when he was in North America. Game companies won't let a single club dominate the league. If you can withstand the designer's targeting, that's real skill. Unlike the domestic holiday that ends on the 8th or ninth day of the first month, Europe had no reason to pause for the Spring Festival. They had to fly back and start preparations for the split. The jungle changes are huge, Shijing continued. Monsters scale with champion level now, and with the XP adjustments, junglers who clear camps efficiently and control the map could really shine. And this scrying orb will change ganks and counter ganks. Control ward no longer being stealthy reduces vision control for the team with map advantage, Shi Zhenyu added. It'll rely more on individual support play in the future. Looks like Fist wants to raise the support status this season. Yeah, items like Spell Thief's Edge and Face of the Mountain giving supports gold will make their roams more threatening. I just hope our future teammates at G2 understand that. Don't worry, I've got your back, Shi Jing said with a chuckle. Shi Jing had largely facilitated their move to Europe, and Ming Ge had already secured a core position for Xiao Shito during his time overseas. Even if he hadn't, Shi Jing's training plans would favor his old teammate. They'd been comrades at NXG. As long as there was no internal power struggle at G2, Shi Jing was confident they could lead the club into the top league before the EU spring split. Before they joined, G2 had done thorough background checks. The organization was co-founded by former pro Oceloti and esports entrepreneur Jens Hilgers, and it seemed to have received fresh investment this year. With an owner who'd been a pro, Shi Jing felt more reassured. Outsiders wouldn't be dictating inside matters. The flight was long but uneventful. The plane landed at Berlin-Brandenburg Airport. Shi Zhenyu and Shi Jing walked out and headed toward the exit. On the right side of the terminal road, a Mercedes-Benz GL350 was waiting. Two burly European men leaned against the car, holding a sign that read, "Welcome, Stone." "Hello, welcome to Berlin," one of them called, spreading his arms and motioning them over. Shi Jing pulled up the club's contact photo on his phone and matched it to the man in front of him. He realized with a start it was Oceloti. Westerners' faces sometimes blended together to him, but this one he recognized. "Hello, Oceloti," Shi Jing said. "Hello, River." Oceloti beamed, showing no hint of disdain for the coach who'd guided their training remotely during the festival. That guidance had noticeably improved G2's overall play, and Oceloti was thrilled. "Hello, Oceloti, I'm Jungler Stone." Shi Zhenyu stepped forward and extended his hand without showing any airs. No matter how famous his NXG past was, G2 was a new team with work to prove. Shi Jing translated smoothly. His English was excellent, and he handled daily communication easily. Oceloti grinned at Shi Zhenyu. "Stone, I watched all your LPL replays in the S3 World Championship. Your invade timing and map control are exactly what we need. Berlin's a great place, and G2's a great club. You're going to like it here. Welcome to G2. I promise you won't regret it." Shi Zhenyu offered a small smile and nodded. "Heh, get in the car quickly." Oceloti laughed, opened the rear door, and gestured them into the spacious back seat. "The club prepared a big dinner just for you two. We'll talk more after we eat and drink." The Mercedes slid into Berlin's evening traffic. Shi Jing rode up front with Oceloti, and their conversation quickly turned to the team. Oceloti's excitement was obvious. "River, those tactics you guided earlier, our kids used them in scrims, and they worked brilliantly. They completely baffled the LCS teams that came for practice scrims with us." Shi Zhenyu listened quietly in the back, watching Berlin's fleeting nightscape through the window. It was a strange city and a strange team, but Oceloti's enthusiasm and Shi Jing's composure eased his unfamiliarity. He couldn't help but wonder about a few things he'd left behind. I wonder what's going on with Lao Song and Qiangzi. Chapter 285. This will be a slaughter. It was obvious Oceloti had tried to accommodate his new jungler and coach. Naturally, the welcome dinner leaned heavily on Chinese dishes. But to Shi Zhenyu and Shi Jing's mild dismay, the two versions of sweet and sour pork ribs on the table shared a name, but little else. Imagine biting into chocolate that's been coated in sugar, overwhelmingly, cloyingly sweet. That was their best guess for what G2's ribs tasted like. If they didn't know better, they'd have thought the club was playing a prank. Still, neither of them would refuse hospitality outright. They gritted their teeth and finished the plates. After the staff showed them to their room and the door shut, "Ugh!" Did they plan this as a sugar diet? My pancreas is screaming. Heh, I always thought only Americans ate like this. No wonder the foreigners in the videos I watch on Bilibili call everything delicious. They don't notice any culinary differences. Maybe they're like us, too embarrassed to complain. Sigh, I miss the NXG cafeteria. Stop moping. Get some rest. There's a warm-up scrim tomorrow. Shi Jianyu, your bet requires you to at least make the LCS to break even. Shi Jing patted Shi Jianyu on the back, nudging him to rest first. The room G2 had set up for them wasn't small. A wardrobe by the door, a bathroom tucked in the back right, a standard double. After they stowed their bags, Shi Jing added, "This patch is different from before the spring festival. I'm going to check the scrims and see your future teammates." "Thanks, Jingyi," Shi Jianyu said without ceremony. They were from the same club. At a new place, mutual support came naturally. For pro teammates, proving yourself in game was the fastest way to earn trust. If a coach could speed that up, all the better. G2's daily routine wasn't wildly different from NXG's. Ever since NXG had run the perfect record and taken the championship, teams in major regions had either consciously or unconsciously imitated their schedules. The differences were mostly in training volume, more or less. Shi Jianyu stuck to the routine he'd built at NXG simply because he didn't want to throw away the habits that had made him good. He wasn't trying to craft a hard-working newcomer image. He was protecting his own competitive form and the terms of his bet. The next morning, he woke around 10, as he usually did. The base was quiet. Teammates were probably still asleep. He grabbed 2 pieces of bread and milk in the cafeteria, skipped an outside run in unfamiliar Berlin, and went through NXG's fitness routine in the open area by the club. By the time he'd finished and washed up, it was nearly 11, and staff were finally moving about inside. Berlin's neighborhood where G2 was based had an old-town feel, nowhere near the bustle of Magic City or the streets of Jinling. When he'd done his inspection last year, he'd been surprised for a moment, but he wasn't the sort to let surroundings affect him. Seeing that his teammates weren't up yet, he asked a staff member where the training room was and headed there to warm up. Thanks to the English lessons he'd taken with NXG's teacher, gestures and simple phrases were enough. G2, like other teams copying NXG, seemed to have mechanically mimicked the workload in its schedule without noticing that Coach Ming Gi had deliberately left scattered pockets of rest time in NXG's plan. Shi Jianyu wasn't trying to look industrious. He just didn't want to become lazy and give his new teammates a reason to whisper. Besides, he had to stay sharp if he wanted the money from his gambling agreement. In the training room, he adjusted the computer settings. G2 had supplied high-end peripherals, almost too powerful, and he quickly set graphics and performance down to low. Mingge's reminders echoed in his head. Competitive venues in the LCS wouldn't use machines much better than the LPLs. If you practiced on ultra-high specs, you'd have to adapt before playing on standard tournament rigs. Small things could turn into big problems in crucial matches. With his setup sorted, he began his routine. Speed training mini-games and the I Wanna maps for mechanical and mental conditioning. "Yo, already training." Shi Jing walked in with the rest of the G2 roster. He'd coached them remotely during the Spring Festival and had already smoothed some of the early kinks. He clapped to cut through the clatter of keyboards and in-game sounds. "Shi Jianyu, pause your training." Shi Jianyu yanked off his headphones, stood a little stiffly, and nodded to the familiar and unfamiliar faces. "Hello, everyone. Let me introduce you," Shi Jing said in fluent English, a faint anticipation in his tone. "This is G2's new jungler, the starting member of S3 champions NXG, Stone. Hello. Welcome, welcome." H1 Iva, the support, waved eagerly with a friendly smile. "Hi, new jungler." Saphir, the AD carry, greeted him calmly, appraising. "Woohoo! Am I really going to be teammates with the S3 champion jungler? Sweet." The German top laner Smittage, louder and more boisterous than the others, whistled and cheered. Among the welcomes, Julius, the original G2 jungler, looked especially stiff. He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes, which held a mix of disappointment and pressure. It was understandable. Player rotation was routine for a secondary league team, but this felt different. A player carrying a world championship trophy had just signed on. The stakes shot way up. Internally, Julius howled, Are you kidding me? A secondary league jungler versus the S3 champion jungler? The matchmaking must be broken. No one had time to indulge Gilius's misery. Hello, I'm Luka Perkovic. Very pleased to be teaming with you. A bright voice came forward and a grin lit up the room. Shi Jianyu's eyes traced the figure. Thick, slightly curly light golden hair, tall, a chiseled jaw. He looked like a mature young man. But Shi Jianyu's memory flicked to last night's briefing. Owner's designated successor, substitute mid laner, in-game ID perk Z. Age 15? The contrast between his appearance and his age was startling. Still, the teenager's enthusiasm was infectious. Shi Jianyu gripped the hand perk Z offered and felt the boy's strength and youthful energy. Shi Jing gave a bit more context as players finished warming up in their positions. Oceloti and Jens Hilgers arrived, and the room tightened with expectation. This scrim after joining G2 wasn't just a chance for Shi Jianyu to prove his title as a champion jungler wasn't empty. It was his first real step toward carving out his place in the team's hierarchy. Oceloti and Jens stood at the entrance, faces open with excitement. Today's scrim opponent was Atrox Gaming from the LCS. In the past, a newly formed secondary league team scoring a scrim against a strong top league side would have been near impossible. The skill gap often made such matches unproductive. But the moment Stone signed, all those barriers evaporated. S3 champion jungler was a powerful calling card. Teams that hadn't even touched the World Championship wanted to see firsthand what the champion-level mechanics, vision, and tempo actually looked like. Facing G2 with Stone was a rare opportunity to sample NXG's core playbook. Shi Jing watched the faces around him and let a tiny, unreadable smile cross his lips. "Feeling them out?" someone asked. "No," Shi Jing replied. "This will be a slaughter." The custom draft mode match room was created, a password set, and the top laner took responsibility for inviting the Atrox Gaming players. "We've agreed with the other team for this one. No bans. Pick whatever you want," he said. Shi Jing slipped smoothly into a spectator slot. As the coach, he needed to be ready to record the scrim. S4 had just been updated. Every pro team was still experimenting. Bans mattered less than practice. Shi Jianyu put his headphones back on, found the rename option on the EU client, and updated his new club account to G2 Stone. "Stone, do you want me to pick a champ for you first?" the top laner asked. No matter what their thoughts about this imported star jungler were, a top laner knew better than to sour relations with his jungler. The lane swap jokes were only funny until the top ended up alone. "Get me Tristana first," the young Afghan AD player cut in. With the patch, Tristana's attack speed and her E were buffed. "I think she'll be top pick for ADC this season." He wanted to show the new coach what 2 weeks of focused training had done for him, meta study and champion pool expansion. He also had his own reasons to cling to G2 and a pro career. This season, the owner had paid heavily to bring in an S3 champion-level player. Whatever contract the newcomer had signed or who would lead the team didn't matter to him. He knew Coach River, who came along with the pickup, could raise his level. "Tristana, huh? We can do that," Shi Jing said after a moment, already thinking about synergies. Bottom should avoid being forced into a heavy early lane fight. Support needs to pick a champ with strong laning to help her. Zira had been nerfed into obscurity after Worlds, and Thresh had taken a stat hit for his mechanical dominance. Strong laning supports were scarce. Atrox Gaming's first 2 picks were Caitlyn and Janna. "Looks like they're aiming for fast push in bot," Shi Jing observed. "H1iva, can you pick Nami to go with me?" Shi Jianyu asked the support. "Stone, you planning to pick?" "Jarvan 4, Shi Jianyu decided quickly, picturing the man in golden imperial armor. "Jarvan 4. Shi Jing understood immediately. To earn a team's trust as a jungler, you either have to be a carry so overpowering you can win games alone, or you have to control tempo and keep the whole squad in check. Joining G2 with little synergy yet and facing a higher-tier, more experienced opponent, a safe, tempo-oriented pick made sense. Win first, build trust, then show more. Blue Team G2, Shyvana top, Jarvan 4 jungle, Ziggs mid, Tristana and Nami bot. Purple Team, Renekton top, Olaf jungle, Syndra mid, Caitlyn and Janna bot. After the brief loading screen, Summoner's Rift loaded for the 10 pros. "Go, position here." Pings flew, but the language barrier and different playstyles showed immediately. The 4 teammates who spoke different languages made things harder than Shi Zhenyu expected. Gone were the familiar morale boosts and pre-game banter with his ex-teammates. The expected early pings and automatic micro-commands were missing. The support, he discovered, was far slower than he'd anticipated. The others weren't much better. After buying items, Stone glanced back and saw his teammates were 2 seconds slower leaving base. Bad news, the team's discipline was poor. Good news, the opponents were sloppy too. Arriving at the river, he took a defensive position and finally spotted Atrox's support. If this were NXG, you'd get wiped in a level 1 fight, he thought. Without his usual teammates, he deliberately slowed himself to avoid pulling them out of sync later. Shyvana top and the bot duo would be pushed early. Ziggs could shove fast, but had to respect Syndra's bully potential. The pressure would fall on Jarvan. I'll play for counter ganks, he decided. Aggressive plays were out. Jarvan's EQ combo wasn't reliable enough to risk early fights against that comp, and Blue had no chance of winning early skirmishes. If this were NXG and all 3 lanes were at a disadvantage, they would have swapped. Shyvana playing defensively, Tristana using E to shove, Nami roaming with Jarvan to create jungle support synergy, and Ziggs rotating to avoid Syndra's spikes. He took over the shot calling. I'll swap jungle with Olaf. Top, help me hit it a few more times. He didn't mince words. Support, leave a ward here. Both top and bot were going to be pressured anyway. Early presence didn't matter as much as useful vision. He wondered why AG hadn't invaded his jungle at level 1, but since they hadn't, he wouldn't start red buff in bot. With mid and bot lacking priority, Olaf would almost certainly start blue and then look to invade bot side jungle. An early jungle swap was acceptable for his Jarvan. In the G2 training room, despite being in the same match, the players' faces split between disbelief and awe. 3 minutes in, Stone's terrifying sense of tempo had already become a brutal lesson in fundamentals. This wasn't flashy mechanical display. Level 1 champions couldn't pull off world-shattering plays, but a clean demonstration of fundamentals and awareness that instantly exposed the gap between secondary league players and a world-class jungler. "What the?" the ADC blurted, eyes wide. "Why is he so much faster buying items and leaving base? Is he a robot?" The mid laner swallowed and tried to rationalize. He pings the minimap. "I heard people say NXG drills this until it's muscle memory, but 2 seconds shouldn't make that much difference." His sentence was interrupted by the bot lane. "What? Stone, how did you know?" The support slapped his cheek in alarm. "That pinged spot! Janna, she was there!" The top laner peered at Jarvan's minimap movements, unsettled. Jungle swap? He just swapped straight away? Without hesitation? What if Olaf rotates top and runs into him? How can he be so certain? Before their bewilderment could fully settle, Jarvan 4 on the minimap pulled off a precise EQ, vaulting from the barren pit into the enemy's red buff quadrant. And in the small ward the support had placed under Stone's calm command, Atrox's jungler Olaf stood revealed with his twin axes raised. The time and location were perfect. A collective breath seemed to leave the training room. Shi Jing grinned, arms crossed. This was just the beginning. Dropping a world champion jungler into a team of secondary league players wasn't merely a tiger in a flock of sheep, it was a dimensional mismatch. Stone's strength wasn't raw mechanical wizardry, it was his early game awareness and counterplay. "Retreat! Retreat!" His pings rang out as he hit the red buff. He didn't hang around. Olaf started blue, and after hitting 3, would almost certainly look to gank bot. Stone had to get out and prepare to counter that, not get caught in an unfavorable skirmish. Chapter 254. P's smile grew brighter. "We've been spotted?" "Probably. Their duo just backed off. Kire, you can go clear the jungler camp." The bottom lane duo's reaction from G2 froze Olaf in place for 2 full seconds. On the other side of the scrim, Shi Zhenyu watched AG's laners and couldn't help but shake his head. This discipline is awful. Olaf had just invaded the enemy's lower jungle, and yet AG's top crocodile was still pushing dangerously deep. Even an LPL subteam knows the half-map principle these days. How could AG be this careless? Shi Zhenyu wasn't in a rush to bail Shyvana out on top, though. A level 2 crocodile with a 2-stage E can create distance fast, and Shyvana without her ultimate lacks early damage and lockdown. Relying solely on the jungler's EQ combo wouldn't guarantee a clean result. he chose to approach mid instead. Originally, he wanted to tell his mid laner to act, but when words failed, he resorted to pings, hoping G2's mid would read him. With their lineup, if Ziggs could safely farm, AG, who lacked strong engage, would be under severe pressure. The jungler stayed hidden, pressuring the crocodile to farm safely while keeping a careful eye on Syndra's position in mid, waiting for an opening. Go, go, go! Syndra! Nice! Api's grin widened. When the EQ combo knocked Syndra up, Ziggs just reached level 3, pulled the trigger and spammed Q, E and W onto Syndra's stunned body. Bomb after bomb exploded. Syndra's health plummeted. She used the quickness to escape, but barely. Shizhenyu clicked his tongue at Perks in mid. He was such a hothead. If this had been him and Mingay playing, Ziggs' W would have been held just a beat longer, maybe after Syndra flashed, rather than throwing everything in at once. Back in Season 4, Ziggs could burst opponents to dust. Q, W, E, R, and passive all hit hard, and top mid players timed their passive so they could stack 2 procs in a single all-in. After forcing out Syndra's escape, Shizhenyu didn't leave immediately. He helped Ziggs shove the wave, then used a refreshed smite to clear the F4 camp before recalling. He knew the enemy's bottom jungle would be empty. If he didn't clear that camp, his farm would fall behind Olaf's. On his first recall, instead of rushing to upgrade his jungle item, he bought a Doran's blade. That little HP and AD purchase was perfect for early skirmishes. What is he doing buying a Doran's blade? Wouldn't upgrading the jungle item give better clears? Is he planning a hard dive bot? G2's original jungler, watching through the observer slot, tried to reset his mindset. If you're going to be outmatched, learn from it. Maybe you'd earn a spot on another team later. He quickly understood Stone's idea. When Stone left base the second time, he didn't head bot. He marched straight toward top. Smittage was having a rough laning phase. After taking several pokes, his HP was dangerously low. From the spectator view, it was obvious G2's Olaf and Syndra were converging for a dive. AG was baiting the top lane. Why did Stone stop before the inner tower? Isn't he here to help Shyvana countergank? Jens asked, confused. Jarvan's playing around vision, Ocelot explained. Counterganking, yes, but he's using Shyvana as bait. Fist updated tower damage again in Season 4. Early tower dives are extremely risky. If the enemy jungler shows up in vision, the purple side might give up, but if it's just Shyvana alone under tower, a 3v1 can be worth it for the purple side. From the outside, Ocelot instantly understood Stone's thinking and was stunned. Stone had read AG's intentions perfectly. Buy Doran's blade to prepare for short fights, abandon bot, and head to top to counter their expected play. This was the kind of reading you'd expect from a Season 3 champion. The countergank crushed the dive. Shyvana died, but under the Dragon Strike's knockup, the crocodile who was tanking tower aggro also fell. Using the last tick of red buff, Shizhenyu and the arriving Ziggs even finished off Syndra in the jungle, who couldn't escape her cooldowns. 1 for 2, and the purple side came out far ahead. For the next few minutes, Olaf tried to gank again, but either he was met by a nearby jungler or spotted by ward vision and forced off. When he finally returned, his jungle camps were cleared. AG's jungler Kire raged in voice chat. "Why can he always predict my position?" he shouted, slamming his desk. "Sorry, man, my Syndra's getting crushed by their Ziggs," another voice chimed in. "Let's wait for the dragon fight," someone suggested. Stone just joined. His coordination with teammates shouldn't be perfect yet. "Yeah, I agree," Kire answered. "Our comp is supposed to bully early, right?" By the time all the laners hit level 6, AG had gathered at Dragon. They want the dragon. Do we contest? After seeing that counter gank, G2's players instinctively grouped around their jungler, faster than anyone outside expected. Team sports is simple. When you have a carry who can lead you, everyone follows. Shizhenyu shook his head and pinged no contest. Taking Ziggs, Tristana, and Shyvana to clash with Kraka, Syndra, and Olaf would be a bad trade. "Push the waves," he signaled. With a few pings and short calls, he made his plan clear. Force AG into a bad fight and trade objectives instead. Ziggs used a few spells to clear the mid-wave. Tristana's E-Splash shoved bot. After pushing waves forward, G2's duo rotated up to the top half of the map to avoid repeated tower dives and to set up a lane swap. AG was confused. They'd taken Dragon, but they'd lost tempo. Thanks to the jungler's constant interference, the minion waves were under Stone's control. They expected a contest at Dragon. Instead, the enemy ignored them and took waves in all 3 lanes. That translated into lost CS for AG and a missed first tower gold that turned into a trade. Why is Kiri's jungle clear so far behind our junglers? AG's mid asked when the top and bot towers were exchanged and the lane swap phase began. Around 17 minutes, they realized their Olaf was 30 plus CS behind Stone. You can't gank, can't control tempo, and can't even clear the jungle faster than the opponent? Both teams were puzzled. Stone hadn't taken lane waves much, yet his CS kept climbing. Instead of constant fights, the game became a repeated rhythm of leaving, grouping, taking waves, and swapping under the jungler's ping control. By 20 minutes, the purple side had 2 dragons, and the blue side led by 2 towers. The gold told the story. J4 with a black cleaver and another offensive item versus an Olaf with a single item and boots. The blue side wasn't refusing to fight, they were just funneling all their pressure onto Syndra. AG's vision and rotations were sloppy. Their immobile mid lane looked isolated and kept getting picked. Syndra became Stone's primary target. AP's grin never left his face from the first gank at 4 minutes. He'd come in hoping to learn from a Season 3 champion, thinking he'd be the support doing the heavy lifting. Instead, Stone was the kind of player who put gold in your mouth. He made his teammates shine. Chapter 2 of 55, Changing the Engine Makes a Difference, 606. That was the perfect score Perks' Ziggs posted at the end of the game. By contrast, the opposing Syndra, ruthlessly targeted by Jarvan 4, finished a miserable 0-7. No wonder Stone was beaming. Think about it. This jungler the club had invested so heavily in was supposed to be a star that needed protecting. Instead, he turned out to be the engine that made everyone else shine. Who wouldn't be thrilled? It wasn't only Perks. After the scrim, the rest of the team couldn't look at Shi Jinyu the same way. If Stone had simply carried the first game solo, people might have chalked it up to raw skill. But he didn't just outplay them, he commanded the map. With Jarvan 4, in a match where all 3 lanes were behind, he carried the team by way of clever jungle swaps, precise counter ganks, and decisive calls to swap lanes. Was that really me on stage? Several teammates kept asking themselves. The answer was obvious. The credit belonged to that one person who kept pinging, communicating in clear, broken English, and never stopping. He read the enemy Olaf's timings perfectly, calmly told the team how to respond to grouped pushes, and executed resource trades flawlessly. The G2 players finally understood why NXG had looked unbeatable at Worlds. It wasn't a joke. One jungler, in his first game against an LCS team and with brand new teammates, had predicted everything the opponent would do. Olaf's jungle was wrecked by counter-jungling. Stone's vision control during lane swaps was better than their supports. All they had to do was follow his calls and play their roles. In teamfights, Jarvan handled initiation, EQing the opponent mid, interrupting Caitlyn's displacement with Dragon Strike. The 2 carries felt it most. They had never seen such perfect setup since turning pro. "This is what I want," one of them said. "This is the missing piece G2 needed." Kalausi grabbed Jens's shoulders and practically shook him. "You saw it, right? Just by changing one jungler, the team is reborn." "The engine," Jens Hilgers sighed with feeling. "We bought a top-tier engine with a turbocharger." Celebrations and devastation seldom coincide. While the G2 players and managers were buzzing, the original G2 jungler was crushed. He couldn't compete. He knew after today his days of starting weren't guaranteed. All GG. Seeing the top laner type G in chat, Shi Jinyu stretched and smiled faintly at his teammates' praise. This was his first scrim after joining G2. In the pick phase, he'd already decided to play the team role. True jungle impact is not flashy mechanics, but the ability to set pace. A solo carry looks pretty, but someone who can elevate the whole squad is far more valuable. And he was playing Jarvan 4. Even if he'd wanted to build full damage, that wouldn't have been the point. By grabbing the fundamentals this first game, he set himself up. If he wanted to show more carry potential later, the team would be willing to give him resources. That was social intelligence. While laners rely on the jungle's safety depends on lane support. With that in mind, Shi Jinyu turned to coach Shi Jing beside him. Jingge, can you pull up the replay and review AG's jungle and support vision from 16 to 27 minutes? No problem. Shijing agreed. Teams usually exit before a scrim ends to avoid leaving a full match record, but coaches save the necessary footage. Though staff were still processing the replay, Shijing had already noted AG's vision habits at key moments while spectating. He and Stone exchanged a few quick points. Cope wrapped up the review, and Shijing clapped once to get the players back to their seats. The scrim wasn't over after one win. These sessions were BO3s or BO5s by custom, and they weren't wasting time. AG recreated the room for Game 2 and side-swapped. As the pick and ban clock was about to start, Shi Zhenyu looked up and called out, quiet but audible to everyone. Perks, for the next game, can you support me? Perks, having just enjoyed near nanny-level service in mid, practically leaped from his chair. He threw a hand to his chest and, in his usual theatrical English, beamed, "Of course, my dear Mr. Jungler. Perks, First Knight of Europe, is always happy to serve. Point east, I will never go west." He immediately offered ideas. Lissandra, coach, didn't Yihan run Lissandra with Stone at Worlds and crush SKT? I could do that. Future first mid laner of Europe, you know. Perks, you're too much, the top laner laughed. Seeing a big signing and wanting to hog him, Lissandra's in my top pool too. Better to share, another chimed in. Even our AD needs a strong partner. Stone, I won't take red buff. How about you come bottom more often? Someone suggested eagerly. Even the usually quiet support piped up playfully. Stone, want me to pick Lulu and be your personal babysitter? I'll make sure you're comfy. Stone and Coach Shijing exchanged a glance, equal parts bemused and relieved. They'd been worrying too much. This G2 team, like most in the scene outside a few disciplined powerhouses, was pretty free-spirited. Their tactical systems were still being built. Fundamentals like CS and Vision were often sloppy compared to NXG's standards. What Stone had shown, the ruthless rhythm control, the efficient gank routes, the macro resource management, had felt like a different dimension to them. Of course they wanted to be on his team. For players, having a jungler who hands them scoring chances is about highlight plays, team ceiling, and yes, market value. The room practically smelled like opportunity. Picks lit up for Game 2. Perks, curious about what else Stone might bring, hoped for something flashy. Aatrox, maybe? But Stone's cursor hovered over a very different portrait. Witness the power of the Shadow Isles, he murmured, and locked in Hecarim, sunbeam rainbow pony skin, shining fluorescent blue. The skin's cheerful sparkle was mirrored by the two G2 managers at the back of the room, bright noon sun, full of hope. Stone hadn't lost his reputation as a champion jungler, even when shifting to a carry pick. As the game began, he led the team to invade AG's blue side, forcing Xin Zhao to start on the top half of his jungle. Top lane, play safe. Watch for Xin Zhao's level 2 gank, he pinged. Okay, don't worry, pressure's my thing. Smitty's cheerful voice answered, chest thumping with confident bravado. The bearded top laner known for Jason Riven was happy to take the hit to impress the jungler. Hecarim had been in and out of the meta since Season 3. With Season 4's changes, more jungle gold but a slightly slower pace, and a lower ghost cooldown, Hecarim came back into relevance. Like Jarvan in the previous game, Stone picked Hecarim with a purpose. This champion's aggressive carry and engage style would reveal who on the team would step up in fights and who would shy away. It was a test for freeloaders or cowards. AG didn't contest the early invade after their loss, and Xin Zhao honestly started on the top side. But Stone's jungle path confused G2's players again. He began on the blue, kited toward the red while keeping maximum ramp Q stacks, and kept his eyes on every lane. As the mid laner finished the second wave, Stone pinged his upper jungle. Perks, ward the Krug's pit. Perks obliged, and when Xin Zhao showed on the ward, the rookie mid felt a little world opened. This was the reasoning behind NXG's warding on F4 during swaps. He filed it away for later coaching. Inside NXG, Stone's gift for timing, reading vision and predicting the enemy's next play, had often been mirrored by teammates like Zhang Ming. That kind of map sense was what Stone relied on now. Behind him, G2's substitute jungler exclaimed, "Wait, if both of them are jungling, why is Xin Zhao so far behind early?" Hecarim was just faster. After spotting Xin Zhao, Stone cleared the opposite half of the jungle, back to buy, then rushed to the spawn point, where the second set of camps on Blue's upper jungle would respawn. Something was brewing. A minute later, the first blood ping popped up on the purple side. The two junglers, who should have finished the swap and been back in control, ended up clashing. With his Q stacked from camp clears, Hecarim chased down Xin Zhao and cleaned him up in front of the outer turret. Chapter 289, Bought Too Little. At the start of the game, when a jungler gets first blood in their own jungle, a casual player might think it's only a 400 gold loss. It isn't. The chain reaction from losing jungle control is often far more deadly than a lane collapsing. The clearest example here was AG's bottom lane. They drafted a strong duo and should have been aggressively securing vision on the lower half of the map to contest Dragon. Instead, a level 1 jungle swap and Xin Zhao's death at level 4 quietly put enormous pressure on AG's bot lane. Even normal last hitting suddenly required extreme caution, for fear of an unseen Hecarim appearing from behind, let alone any aggressive plays. Junglers don't always need to show themselves in a lane to achieve their objectives. Shi Zhenyu remembered Mingge saying at a player selection meeting when he first joined NXG at the end of 2012. At the time, he hadn't fully understood the depth of that advice, but a year of pro play had taught him how to make it real. Enemy jungler can only farm the bottom half of his jungle after respawning. Bot, pull back a bit, Shi Zhenyu said over voice. After killing Xin Zhao, he dove deeper into the jungle. Unlike Hecarim, champions like Xin Zhao and Lee Sin set the pace differently. Hecarim has a strong gank with his E, the devastating charge, and kick, but fundamentally, he's a farmer type. Only a Hecarim with items and levels deserves the nickname War of Shadow. An underfarmed Hecarim is at best a nuisance. Shi Zhenyu's read on Xin Zhao was sound. Most junglers, after their top camps are cleared, can't stand an empty 2 to 3 minutes without farm. Xin Zhao had to head toward the bottom camps. Support H1 Iva reacted quicker than his AD, signaling he understood. He continued to farm minions with his scythe while slowly retreating, ready to throw his lantern the moment the blue team committed. 30 seconds later, Xin Zhao arrived, exactly where Shi Zhenyu expected. But the purple duo had already shoved the wave and backed off. Jungling is a whole other level, Shi Zhenyu thought. Unnoticed by most, his boss Kalau Si and coach Jens were standing behind him. When Kalau Si praised him, Shi Zhenyu accepted it calmly. The problem is AG's intentions were obvious, he said. For Stone, it was like walking to a fork in the road at night and the opponent pointed a floodlight right at him. In the West, humility is less valued than pure strength. If you have it, you show it. The moment Xin Zhao was seen near bot, Hecarim had slipped to top. Letting a top laner eat pressure early doesn't mean abandoning him. Smidige, a loyal Riven and Irelia player, understood tower diving fundamentals. G2's top laner instinctively slow pushed to stack a big wave for a dive. Nice! Shi Zhenyu found himself praising. As a jungler, nothing is more frustrating than having lanes that are just decorations, useless both as frontline and as follow-up. Now, besides perks in mid, whose voice belied his 14 or 15-year-old appearance, G2's top looked promising. With minions under turret, and after confirming Xin Zhao's position and mid's inability to help, Hecarim circled behind and cut off AG's Rumble's retreat. AG's top contorted in rage. He'd been telling his jungler, either gank bot right away or don't reveal vision after clearing bottom camps. Instead, the jungler had apparently wandered off fantasizing about ganks. Their war of shadows charged at them. Their own top seemed more like a clumsy, greedy pig. "Help me," Rumble cried, but no one could save the flaming top champ under turret. Hecarim's kick launched Rumble into his own top laner's embrace and perfectly knocked him out of turret range into a safe zone. Shi Zhenyu inwardly scoffed. No wonder European fundamentals are sketchy. Rumble didn't use his ultimate to clear minions to minimize losses, nor did he use the quickness to reposition and avoid being kicked out of turret range. If this had been a ranked or official match, he might have chosen the safer plays. Once Hecarim realized top was an easy target, he made it his second home. After clearing a set of camps, he'd appear in the upper half of the map. After another clear, he'd roam back. It was as if he were telling AG, "Rumble without the quickness. Are you going to deal with him? No? Then I'll dive. Oh, you are? Fine. Then I'll gladly take Dragon." As the game pushed into mid-game, the speed difference between Hecarim and Xin Zhao became obvious. One moment, Hecarim baited top or mid. The next, he'd activate Devastating Charge and be in the bot lane. A Hidden Vision ultimate from behind would send AG's duo to their deaths and secure Dragon at the same time. Unlike his previous humble game, Shizenyu's Hecarim took kills, minions, and cannon waves whenever possible, leaving nothing behind. By just over 11 minutes, his mount with Boots of Swiftness and Trinity Force felt unstoppable. A true warhorse breaking its reins and dominating the battlefield. At 15 minutes, Shizenyu pressed Ghost, combined it with Devastating Charge, and Hecarim's movement speed hit terrifying levels. 3 seconds? 2? AG's mid didn't know. He only saw a rainbow streak across the river and a dazzling blur of hooves. At the very moment Gragas leapt in with body slam, Hecarim struck like a meteor, knocking Gragas down midair. The sound was crisp. Whoa! The comms exploded. Oh my god! Dude, this is insane! So cool! Perks' exclamations filled team voice, stunned and ecstatic. With the jungler setting the pace, the remaining cleanup was easy. Charm, Orb of Deception, Ahri sealed the kill. G2, Perks killed AJ Huxa. Tsk, flawless teamwork, Perks murmured with a satisfied smile. He adored this new jungler. Exceptional mechanics, total control of tempo, and even more important to Perks, impeccable team awareness. Despite playing a voracious jungler who could take kills, camps, and waves, once Shizenyu was farmed, he freely gave precious resources and kills to his teammates, like handing out the sweetest fruit. Which carry wouldn't love someone who can both carry and nurture the team? As fights shifted into mid to late game, things exploded. The European players, carefully fed by Shizenyu's Hecarim and now ahead in items, roared in voice chat and threw themselves into battles with abandon. For a secondary league team to crush a top-tier squad like AG, where else had G2 experienced this? Was this the thrill NXG had last year? Kalausi grinned. His investment in imports had paid off. Shizenyu's earlier worry that his initiation would be wasted because teammates were timid didn't just fail to happen. It reversed into something extraordinary. Whenever Hecarim neighed and the spectral cavalry of Onslaught of Shadows trampled through enemy lines, G2's 2 carries would launch themselves forward, seemingly powered by adrenaline, matching the speed of the charge. They turned Hecarim's initiation into a full frontal dive, a ferocious all-in assault. The scene was stunning. These European players, used to scraps, now suddenly fed and coordinated, seemed to feast on victory. In the end, Shizenyu had to admit that while European players might be a bit rough on mechanical details, somewhat weaker individually, they made up for it in fearless aggression. In teamfights, they truly dared to commit. The game ended 19-4. Hecarim alone accounted for nearly 2/3 of the team's kills, 11 kills, 0 deaths, and 7 assists, virtually 100% kill participation. How does it feel? Jens Hilgers asked Kalausi after the win. They'd beaten AG twice, but Jens still wasn't certain about G2's true level with the new roster. Kalausi's excitement hadn't faded. A bloodbath. This was a bloodbath against AG. This means our team has the standard of a top-tier lineup. Stone and our guys even synced for the first time. No doubt, spending a lot on Stone was worth it, Jen said. LCS will definitely not be our endpoint. Hell yeah, Kalausi cheered. Then Jen swore under his breath. Kalausi looked confused. What's wrong? The team played great. Why are you freaking out? Jens looked conflicted. I bought too little. I should have bought NXG's mid laner Yihan too. JM? Kalausi blinked. Oh no, we can't afford JM's price, Jen said, half in regret, half in disbelief. Chapter 257, The So-Called Students All Over the World. Already recognized by your teammates? Good to see some harmony in the team, Zhang Ming said, looking at the screen as he listened to Xiao Shito and Xi Jing talk about life at G2 from faraway Germany. Mid laner has potential? Perks? I've met him in ranked games on the North American servers. Definitely a player with a lot of ideas, Shi Zhenyu replied. Xi Jing, who was with him, chimed in with a sigh, but Xiao Shito, you need to watch your teammates. European and North American players like flashy plays, and when the team's synergy isn't solid, those plays backfire. As a coach, Xi Jing, don't favor Xiao Shito too much. Treat everyone fairly. Zhang Ming listened from his desk on a video call with both of them. They'd left NXG and immediately called him after settling into G2, old students checking in with their mentor. Shijing, as the coach, sounded far more exhausted and irritable than the player Shi Zhenyu. "Oh, Mingyi, you have no idea," Shijing said, voice heavy with fatigue. "During scrims, for ban pick and strategy, I really didn't favor Xiao Shito. The problem is those G2 players. No, everyone in the whole LCS region, they're just too wild." He'd been surviving on adrenaline the past week. As a player, Shi Zhenyu only had to train and play. As a coach, Shi Jing's plate was overflowing. After the club privately discussed moving him from the youth program to G2 to try coaching, he'd thrown himself into the job, watching last season's replays of G2 and the whole region, dissecting tactical execution, painstakingly analyzing every detail. He barely gave himself a break, and yet it felt pointless. Those match replays were nearly useless as references. Players here relied on individual mechanics and brute force. Tactical execution was almost absent. Ban pick looked like a mess. Champion selection was chaotic. Team fights, if NXG had played like that, they would have been torn apart in reviews. But in LCS, that was apparently normal. It was maddening. Jiang Ming couldn't help a laugh and quickly covered a smile with his hand. "Cough, I get it. I completely get it." As someone who'd watched the European and North American region's highlights from S3 to S4, he understood Shi Jing's frustration. Apart from Cloud9, which at least showed some order, the LCS had become a parade of absurd plays. That history explained why LPL viewers mocked Europe and North America are trash, and why, after S5, when LCS teams imported Korean talent and coaching systems and suddenly did better at Worlds, fans were baffled. The truth was, the regions had a long record of inconsistent, outrageous play. Even then, only Europe had genuinely improved. North America lagged behind, stuck on a best-of-one mentality and a political correctness that limited change. At Worlds, while other regions fought hard in groups, NA representatives sometimes managed only to eliminate themselves early. So when NXG members dispersed to other regions, the movement could almost be called technical poverty alleviation. "How are you going to coach them?" Jiang Ming asked, sipping goji berry tea. "I'll give you some pointers." They were his kids. He couldn't ignore them. Shi Jing brightened. "I was hoping you'd say that. Here's my plan. Tell me what you think." "I'm going to use the time before LCS promotion and relegation to talk with players individually. From daily training, I'll assess their game understanding, goals, and strengths, and then refine tactical preferences." Qualifying for LCS wasn't difficult with Xiao Shito's performance. If they tightened teamfight synergy, getting into Europe was almost guaranteed. Shi Jing wanted more. He'd also signed a non-compete, so making G2 into just a mid-tier EU team wouldn't pay off. To make serious money, they needed playoffs, and maybe Worlds. G2's training structure is basically non-existent. I found someone to be an assistant for now, but their daily regimen was chaotic. Even when they tried to copy NXG's system, they did it poorly, leaving players burned out without results. Our NXG, Jiang Ming's mouth twitched at the slip of the tongue, but he didn't correct him. The feeling of having students worldwide was oddly satisfying. Playing it safe is the optimal solution. LCS teams don't lack individual skill so much as they lack a standardized training system, Jiang Ming advised. If you start by establishing discipline and rules, you've already won most of the battle. I'm doing that. I adjusted the schedule. European and North American players are different from our NXG youngsters. Adding more hours doesn't always help. Team rules and basic tactical explanations are fine, but scrims. Do you mean scrim with the black and white teams? No, not black and white. Don't scrim them yet? Isn't LSPL starting? Our club formed a secondary league team. Scrim with them. Shi Jing waved his hands emphatically. Scrimming with black and white? He'd been through constant training with those prodigies at the youth camp. He knew their strength. G2, even with Xiao Shito, was still building synergy. Playing black and white now would be like sending a novice boxer into the ring with a professional, suicidal. Once G2 had better coordination, scrims against those teams would be valuable, but not at this stage. Instead, Shi Jing planned a coaching path. Improve individual mechanics, laning, and champion mastery with a personalized solo queue training regimen tailored to each player's pool and weaknesses. If team synergy couldn't be built quickly, compensate with individual strength. If team fights couldn't be fixed overnight, dominate the laning phase and secondary league opponents with brute force. After Xi Jing laid out the plan, Jiang Ming offered more suggestions. The three talked late into the night, not hanging up until China was deep into the small hours. Just as that call ended, Song Yuan and Wu Shiqiang, who had gone to North America to join C9, sent their accounts of the struggles they'd faced. It wasn't that G2's problems were unique to second-tier teams. C9, a world's quarterfinalist, had its own issues. When Song Yuan and Wu Shiqiang first joined C9, their biggest hurdle was integrating into the team's tactical system. NXG had a mature, distinctive system built on trust and perfect five-man cooperation, making them near invincible in team fights. In NXG, the top laner Song Yuan mainly soaked pressure and led the front line. Yihan, Wujian as mid focused on steady farming and being a reliable damage source. But C9's approach was fundamentally different. Lack of discipline in lane and poor control of neutral objectives, slow reactions to the game's rhythm, were the most frustrating parts for the two. Sometimes top and mid would be in position, only to find their teammates scattered across the map. Worse, C9 and many NA teams seemed to lack a tactical philosophy centered around the top lane. 80% of them were stuck in a mindset reminiscent of WE's influence from late S2 to early S3, an outdated mental model. In NXG, top mid-jungle formed the backbone of offense. Support and jungle frequently helped the top get advantages or stabilize. C9's original jungler, however, seemed to think his only job was to be in the bottom lane, leaving the top to fend for himself. If Yihan hadn't occasionally roamed up to help, Song Yuan feared his reputation as a top laner would have been ruined in their very first scrim. Poor early-game farm hurt teamfight presence. As the engage and frontline, if Song Yuan couldn't build enough items, he died too easily without follow-up. Yihan's mid also suffered. At NXG, Jiang Ming paired him with jungle and support depending on champion picks, and in the mid to late game, he had guaranteed output space. At C9, the support had too many ideas, roaming alone and abandoning the AD, sometimes coordinating with jungle, sometimes wandering uselessly. On top of that, the support occasionally took experience that belonged to Yihan's mid. In scrims, the two felt stifled. Their performance contrasted starkly with Xiao Shitou's smooth fit into G2. Thanks to a substitute named Hai moving toward jungle and unexpectedly meshing with them, Song Yuan and Yihan managed to find rhythm in scrims and perform well. Without that, C9 sponsors might have wondered whether they'd bought real NXG players or two very good fakes. Jiang Ming had expected these difficulties. NXG's 5 always had clear strengths and weaknesses. Strengths: chemistry, high execution, strong discipline. Weaknesses: not top-tier individual talent, lacking single-player breakout ability. Together, the 5 covered their weaknesses perfectly. Once scattered, these shortcomings became major obstacles. The options were to either raise individual skill or recreate NXG-level chemistry with new teammates. One or the other had to happen. Communication was a prerequisite for rebuilding trust. For Song Yuan and Yihan, cultural differences were small. Language was the real barrier. NA teams used English for daily comms and tactical talks. The two had poor English compared to Xiao Shitou, who had a useful level of English and Xi Jing acting as translator, so they found it hard to follow calls. In the heat of a match, a misunderstood command could lose a team fight, a jungler pinging a key enemy's position and calling for an English pincer, but Song Yuan and Yihan's slow response to the language meant they repeatedly missed optimal strikes. During practice, tactical explanations and replay reviews were hard to fully grasp. They had to rely on gestures and secondary translations from teammates, which slowed learning and hampered team integration. Even if top and mid worked well together, they couldn't mesh with the jungle. The top mid-jungle core shattered. It would have been a miracle if they'd succeeded without overcoming that. By contrast, Shi Zhenyu at G2 facing secondary league teammates and with a little human warmth lubricating their interactions quickly secured a core role. It wasn't the jungler accommodating the laners. Teammates actively played around the jungle and great performances followed naturally. C9's former jungler quietly thinking, so if top mid-jungle synergy doesn't work, it's entirely my fault, and I get optimized? Chapter 258, That Man Like the Wind. JM, Happy New Year, and to a prosperous partnership. I think you've already felt how sincere we are. The Tigerfish representative smiled as he handed over the heavy contract. Happy cooperating. Jiang Ming stood, his right hand clasping the other's firmly, while his left took his copy of the document. His palm brushed the thick paper, and, by touch alone, he felt the weight of what it contained, a personal signing deal that could shake the esports world. The new year had just passed, and the scent of celebration still lingered when the newly rebranded Tigerfish Live team arrived at NXG Electronic Sports Club amid the Lantern Festival firecrackers. Their mission was simple: secure contract renewals with JM, the top traffic draw on YY Live last year, and lock in the two core NXG teams, the LOL Juggernaut and the S3 Champion Club. Luckily, the visit went smoothly. When Jiang Ming pressed his fingerprint to finalize the signing, the Tigerfish entourage, on edge all morning, finally exhaled. Some unconsciously wiped their brows and muttered about career security, promotions, and raises. This wasn't an ordinary renewal. NXG's S3 championship had lit a powder keg under the esports capital scene. New money poured in, checks waived, and land grabs grew fierce. Though Tigerfish had old ties to JM and NXG through cooperation with the Korean Rocks team, business left no room for sentiment. A moment's hesitation, and deep-pocketed rivals would swoop in. The executives knew that in 2014, with a live streaming market splintering into competing powers and outrageously high poaching contracts becoming routine, losing JM, the golden brand, or NXG team with its terrifying fan base would mean surrendering strategic ground in esports live streaming. The whole reason they reorganized YY's gaming section into Tigerfish Live was to double down on game streaming. For a nascent platform, letting either JM or NXG slip away would be disastrous. If they failed, their rebrand would look like a joke. Fortunately, Tigerfish came prepared with an irresistible offer. NXG Electronic Sports Club's signing fee was 9.9 million RMB, and JM's personal signing fee was a staggering 17 million RMB. Though the main point was to secure JM's exclusive streaming rights, the deal was also a bet on NXG's brand value and prospects for S4. Both contracts were key pieces to lock down before the new season. Then I won't keep you, the representative said, collecting the signed papers with a more genuine smile. The platform will immediately roll out preseason promotions for S4. JM, if you need anything, have your assistant contact me anytime. Understood. Jiang Ming nodded steadily. We'll coordinate the players' streaming schedules as soon as possible. Once the streaming plan framework is drafted, we'll send it for your confirmation. Thank you very much. I wish you and NXG even greater glory this season, JM. You too. After the curt formalities, the Tigerfish team left. The office door closed, shutting out the noise. Jiang Ming's taut nerves finally relaxed, and he let out a long sigh, like a weight had been lifted. He rested his chin on Lin Jingyi's shoulder and sighed in relief. Well, that's one big thing off the list. From the S3 transfer war to subsequent sponsorship and investment talks, he'd barely had time off during New Year 2013, save for a few holiday days. Being a boss in a startup wasn't easy. This multi-million live streaming contract came at the perfect moment. Combined with league dividends and the S3 prize money paid by Fist, NXG, facing rapid expansion, avoided bleeding away large equity and instead paid the necessary price to stockpile resources for the next season. Hundreds of millions in sponsorship were tempting, but Jiang Ming, confident in his club's future, refused to hand over the pie unless absolutely necessary. Done? Lin Jingyi turned her head, an unreadable smile at the corner of her lips. Rather than comforting him as usual, she tapped the astonishingly thick, still wet contract on the desk with a slender finger. My dear boss Jiang, take a good look. This isn't the end, it's the beginning. It's basically a servitude contract. The money from those capitalists isn't that easy to get. If your popularity doesn't meet the standards, what's left in your pocket in the end is only the few million guaranteed minimum. Tsk. Why had he never noticed his senior sister's little Versailles complex before? Humph, Jiang Ming snorted, more playful than angry at being questioned. Are you doubting your man's ability? He knew the weight of Tigerfish's 2014 clauses. Those layered popularity requirements could wreck people. But Jiang Ming already had plans brewing. His eyes flicked to the computer screen, which displayed Fist's latest hero update announcement. A confident smile tugged at his lips. This was where his confidence came from. On January 9th, 2014, Fist released the first hero of the new season, the Unforgiven, Yasuo. Later players would know him as Yasuo, the Windman, but at his debut, the champion dissuaded many newcomers with a unique passive and an ultimate that required a wind to trigger. Early on, players comically debated whether to buy Bloodthirster or Infinity Edge first. Yasuo, in the opening patch, sat alongside the game's problem characters in solo queue. Players avoided him like mudskippers and rookie Zeds. Mid laners found his damage swingy. In teamfights, he either couldn't land his ultimate or died the instant he engaged, making him seem inconsistent compared with Zed or Talon. Those who tried him top were schooled by Renekton and Riven players. After a few brutal losses, Yasuo looked like a garden-variety champ to toss aside. By habit, JM Studio should have released a hero spotlight video following Fist's update, but Jiang Ming deliberately put the Yasuo episode on hold. Officially, club business had consumed him. Secretly, he was planning. No matter the player's skill levels, Yasuo's charms, graceful mobility, striking looks, a moving backstory, and an extremely high skill ceiling wouldn't fade. Strength may be patch-dependent, but coolness lasts, and in the first patch of S4, Yasuo was incredibly strong. His passive, Way of the Wanderer, granted a shield from 60 up to 650 points from level 1 to max, lasting 2 seconds. A 650-point shield was huge, more than most defensive items. His Q, Steel Tempest, now stored wind for a full 10 seconds. 10 seconds meant Yasuo could stroll from mid to help in the jungle without anxiously searching for minions to stack his wind charge before every fight, no longer forced to look like an unprepared swordsman. His E, Sweeping Blade, had absurd values, a 1.0 AP ratio, and each cast boosted base damage significantly. Each E increased basic damage by 25%, plus his W's 20% bonus to shield efficiency. Together, these factors let a max E playstyle suppress many traditional mid-mages. At level 1, you could learn E, dash through minions into trades, and a mage's weak early damage couldn't break the shield. Last Breath needed no introduction, a 1500-unit cast range, basically across the screen, with 50% total armor penetration as a flat percentage and triggered without needing critical strikes. Players hadn't yet cracked his potential. Once Jiang Ming spun the real high-level plays into a spotlight, it would set the new season on fire, the irresistible charm of the Windman. Accumulating popularity was his trade. Streaming was what he did best. Was this an exaggeration? Fine. Recall the beginning of S4 when you watched in King-tier OBS, and that elegant figure who learned E at level 1 slid through minions and dove under towers to solo kill. Recall the peerless swordsman who, at level 6 with a sliver of health, popped a shield and then used Last Breath to snatch a 1v2 double kill. Recall the Wind God in teamfights who used EQ Flash to plunge into the crowd, sweeping 5 enemies with a single blade, every strike a critical hit, dominating the battle. Those screams, Hasagi! Didn't your heart race watching that? Didn't your blood boil at those extreme plays, that visual fury, that adrenaline surge? After watching the video, who didn't immediately cough up 45 yuan for riot points just to buy the new hero? Exactly. Chapter 292, 10 million contract earthquake, a brand new version you've never seen before. Tigerfish moved with astonishing speed, or rather, their marketing team had a precisely timed plan waiting in the wings. The ink on Jiang Ming's contract with NXG had barely dried before a full-scale online blitz launched. On the night of the signing, it hit like a thunderclap. 10 million level contract. Tigerfish spends big to renew a star streamer. Headlines screamed. Esports reaches 10 million era. Related hashtags shot to the top of trending lists in minutes. The internet exploded with shocked chatter. What the hell? A 10 million level contract for a game streamer? Is he streaming for $1 million a year? Is he dealing drugs or building atomic bombs? Come on, even those making babies streams on some rival platform aren't worth that much, right? Guys upstairs must be rolling in it. The teachers next door who earned honest wages their whole lives have something to say. Wait, is JM that big? I remember last year he made waves when the esports team he founded signed $1 million sponsorship in one day. No kidding. I checked Tigerfish's announcement. They also signed other NXG streamers, and the team deal is close to 10 million. One person is worth an entire club? Unreal. You're missing the point. JM and NXG have become massive this year. The S3 Global Finals outdrew the NBA Finals. Did you see the numbers? Tigerfish's first shot after its restructuring landed perfectly, but the campaign didn't stop there. Remembering the way Jiangming and NXG had dominated Hot Topics last year, Tigerfish's young ops team quietly borrowed some of those tactics and kept the momentum going. As soon as the paid trending topics ran their course, a wave of soft feature articles and influencer posts rolled out. Dozens of bloggers who had coincidentally accepted Tigerfish freebies started posting late-night think pieces about the state of esports and the streaming economy. Timed industry analysis videos followed, pumping out supposed foresight and deep-dive takes. S3 Global Finals equals huge success. Esports, Gen Z culture. Game streamer video blogger, the sophomore who became a legend. Pro player turned tutorial content creator, the Confucius of esports. A millionaire in his early 20s, still in college? These bloggers were careful never to explicitly mention Tigerfish signs JM. There were no direct traces in their content, but the effect was delivered precisely. One click, and you were guided into a cascade of posts that turned casual readers into curious fans eager to learn how Jiang Ming rose from an ordinary university student to a self-made millionaire. Tigerfish pushed forward, and other businesses not directly competing helped fan the flames. The LPL League even opened pinned discussion areas on its forums, providing what looked like a one-stop resource. Since JM's deal had kicked off the salary storm, the spotlight soon widened to professional player compensation. First came the announcement that NXG's top laner and mid laner had been transferred to North American powerhouse C9 for eye-popping million-dollar annual salaries. Before people could recover, a record-shattering loan deal sent support star Pang Ran to Royal Family with unprecedented fees, breaking the ceiling for support player value. Online discussion, which had been cooling slightly, spiked back to new highs. Just when many thought the quake would subside, Kalau Si, a notorious traffic stirrer known for bold moves, entered the fray. He rolled out a blockbuster contract for Xiao Shito, complete with a massive signing bonus and juicy performance incentives, igniting hype for the S4 season. It felt like the esports world was at the center of one explosion after another. The continual flow of news battered outsiders' assumptions, playing games for millions and tens of millions. Isn't this the same internet-addicted youth people used to scorn? Suddenly, the whole landscape looked different. Xiaomi's entry created the biggest shock. New era, embrace young users. Xiaomi acquires NXG's LPL slot for 90 million, officially entering esports, the headlines read. Xiaomi had already won huge share of the low to mid-range smartphone market with highly cost-effective devices. With such a large young user base, a demographic that overlaps with esports, Xiaomi owning an LPL spot felt logical and powerful. Now it wasn't just a millionaire. It was a 20-something billionaire-in-the-making university student, self-made. Riding this wave, Jiang Ming's follower count, which had peaked on YY, surged again on his first day at Tigerfish. His weekend stream, long awaited by fans and curious newcomers eager to see a 10 million-level streamer live, was destined to explode. Logically, as champions, Jiang Ming and NXG should have started streaming right away to interact with fans, consolidate popularity, and capitalize on the win, but several factors delayed them. The awkward competition calendar left from the early LPL days forced teams to prepare for playoffs, leaving players exhausted. Jiang Ming also knew that with NXG's roster shifting, including Pang Ran's loan, a sudden public stream might invite backlash from fans struggling with the changes. Most importantly, negotiations with Tigerfish had been protracted during the platform's reorganization. The parties hadn't immediately agreed on terms. In the end, postponing the stream avoided potential negative topics and allowed the narrative around huge transfer fees and platform investment to keep driving interest. Starting the stream this weekend would be perfect timing. Saturday night at 7, prime time, the banner on Tigerfish's homepage announced JM's new season live debut, a brand new version you've never seen before. A click took you straight to his room. Number 20021, Play smart, climb easy. Hello everyone, this is JM, Ming's little classroom, with new champs and new insights. Long time no see. Miss me? Ming sat in his gaming chair and hit start streaming, greeting the audience as chat flooded in like a tide. Fans' messages poured over one another. Long-lost series returns. Knock knock, you still remember your stream account? Count how many days since that fist stream. Tigerfish should check if Hakiming owes any streaming hours before they signed him, deduct his pay. Miss you? Don't lie. You probably wouldn't remember old viewers if it wasn't for this $10 million contract. Sigh. Back when he started, he called us sweeties. Now he's got a club and big money, and suddenly we're Mrs. Cow. Lao Zhang, you've changed. Not even a box of Yuchen Rusong Bing, Yuchen meat floss cake, on your desk for a shout-out. Today's special, Yuchen meat floss cake, made with top pork floss and a crazy flaky crust. Click the link to get a 3-pack at 20% off. The CEO of Yuchen silently liked this in the chat. Come on, that's ridiculous. How could I forget my family? Jiang Ming laughed. It's just been hectic. Player transfers, finding new bases, and endless business meetings. The LPL's been running meetings about the season system reform. I barely had time. See, I finally made time to stream for you all. There aren't many streamers as dedicated as me. The audience wasn't fooled. Don't listen, the turtle's chanting scriptures. You owe us hundreds of hours. 10 days to make it up, rest a few hours, the rest in front of the screen. LPL reform? Tell us more. Don't drag it out, Lao Ming. Give us a new champion guide. Yasuo's wrecking my ranked games. Without your guide, even eating feels bad. Haha, I will. Jiang Ming chuckled, thanked the big tippers displayed on screen, and moved into the main content. As a pillar streamer, once he went live, Tigerfish pushed his stream heavily. The loyal longtime fans had already spammed gifts, smaller streamers trying to piggyback on his popularity, pro players dropping by, and even club reps trying to curry favor all sent gift messages that were drowned out. No one minded being overlooked. The commercial value Jiang Ming represented had become bigger than himself. He symbolized the entire domestic LOL scene. When someone is far enough ahead, rivals prefer to befriend rather than block him. That's the position JM occupied now. The higher his value, the more positive force he generated for the industry. All right, everyone. Your gifts are enough. Forgive me if I missed names, he said with a mock Versailles flourish, then dove into the questions flooding the screen. LPL reform? I'll message the officials. If I can say anything, I will. New champ guide? That's today. No more whining about Yasuo feeders. This happy windman, the Unforgiven, will be our topic. Champion skins? Decided before the new year during that fist stream. Top lane Nisus, jungler Aatrox, mid Yi and Lissandra, AD Vayne support Thresh. There's a bonus surprise, but I'll leave you hanging until Fist finishes the skins in March or April. Unlike many streamers, Jiang Ming spent far more time on interaction and Q&A than on pure ranked play. Viewers wanted practical tips to climb, not just highlight reels from a world-class player. In their eyes, he was the Esports Confucius, someone to learn from, not merely to admire. Old rule for the new season, let's start with patch changes. He opened the client and shared Fist's patch notes since the S4 update. First, assassins got nerfed. Most folks already know. Except for LeBlanc and Fizz, heroes like Zed and Talon aren't ideal for low-skill players to climb with. I'm not saying you can't play them, but they're mechanically demanding and require tons of practice for consistent results. For mid lane, farming mages are back in vogue. Ziggs, Orianna, Lulu, all solid picks. If you want to play aggressively and bully the lane, go Syndra. Counter picks exist. Take Yasuo, who we're covering today. He's top tier. Don't think he's a feeder. You know the saying, there are no useless champions, only useless summoners. Chapter 260. Has the National Server Challenger scene always been this brutal? Chapter 293. How could a National Server Challenger game ever be easy? The new S4 patch, after being toyed with by the NXG team, changed a lot. Minion and jungle monster spawn times were synchronized, which basically shut down the old top lane trick of clearing a jungle camp before heading to lane, except in lane swaps or on certain champions. Ignite's damage was nerfed, and turrets received both attack and health buffs. At the same time, Teleport's cooldown was reduced. Even though there were still some hard-hitting top matchups, Those changes opened room for scaling champions to appear. Mid-lane assassins hadn't been nuked the way they had in the previous world, but their ability to instantly delete squishies was curtailed, giving space to sustain and poke mages like Ziggs and Xerath. Jungle monsters now gave significantly more experience and gold, double increases across the board, and new gold items for supports were introduced. Junglers and supports, who'd been treated like tools the last 2 seasons, were finally back in the spotlight. And AD carries? They were the ones left quietly hugging themselves. At first glance, nerfs to Ignite and Assassins looked like they increased ADC survivability in teamfights, but the overall gold boost and more powerful jungle/support meant those roles could now threaten ADCs as well. Still, with the devs listening to feedback, this patch was genuinely a 100 flowers blooming update, relatively balanced, with a lot of viable picks. Across nearly 100 champions, when you stripped away preferences for looks or playstyle, the pick rates of about 80% of champions were already pretty close. You couldn't compare the pick rate of Urgot to Yasuo, of course, but the meta was much more diverse. Jiang Ming, using his client, casually analyzed the lane ecology for viewers on his stream. He emphasized that players who'd had a miserable time in jungle and support the last 2 seasons could finally enjoy themselves this season. For duo queue climbing, I recommend combos like top jungle, mid jungle, or jungle support. At worst, a double carry duo is fine. I don't really recommend duoing bottom lane. If you're duoing bot, stick to normals, he said. Feedback flooded the chat. Haha, thanks to NXG, I've already got to Platinum 1 with my Kindred. I'm a Diamond 4 support on Black Rose. Exactly what Ming Gi said. Junglers wanting to duo to climb are lining up. Also, I'm male. Bro Ming, telling people not to duo bot must have crushed all the AD players' dreams of carrying their girlfriend. Duoing bot is already hard. Mid, top, and jungle love ganking bot. Early on, duo lane gold and experience is weaker than a solo lane. If your teammates aren't strong, they'll get poked apart. Isn't JM saying that because NXG keeps doing 4-man ganks on bot? Protective Doe. By the way, Mingi, tell us why NXG is so strong. My rank's low. I don't get pro games. All I know is NXG steamrolls everyone. A casual viewer's offhand request cut through the chatter. Listeners wanted Jiang Ming to analyze his own team. That shouldn't be allowed, right? Team secrets? Maybe the guy asking is the owner of some hidden club. Say what you want, Jiang Ming said effortlessly, and the stream exploded. Wait, write this down. Get your notebooks, LPL teams. Come listen, at XMIG. A half smile tugged at Jiang Ming's mouth as he shook his head. Where did a team's domination come from? Over the last decade, had the big regions in pouring over SKT, now T1, failed to extract anything useful? Of course not. Forget the mystique around T1. The heads of the regions had studied them down to the color of Faker's underwear. The systematic qualities top teams needed: team play, tactical execution, resource control, individual mechanical refinement, champion depth, decision-making, psychological resilience. These frameworks were well understood and broadly validated across Europe, North America, even Southeast Asia. NXG's crushing dominance last season came partly because the pro ecosystem around them was still maturing. Their professional standards created a dimension-reducing advantage in a generally low-level competitive environment. But as the league system matured and more money flowed in, teams began professionalizing quickly. Copying the operational models, training approaches, and tactical systems of leading clubs became inevitable. With systematic learning and imitation, rivals could catch up. It was only a matter of time. Helping competitors to quickly reach the same baseline was actually healthy for the scene. The true ceiling of a team, though, still rested on execution depth. The club management's strategic vision and operational efficiency, the coach's tactical and patch reading ability, player development and in-game decision-making, and most importantly, whether a club could fully realize and sustain a player's peak performance. How about that? The training plans and strengthening measures I set up for NXG last year, Jiang Ming told the viewers. Though he was speaking to the stream, the message was really for the LPL and teams everywhere. Next month, our new NXG base will be fully renovated and ready. I'll invite everyone to come check it out. Let's call it the NXG Esports Experience Camp. Can we actually experience what it's like to be a pro? I'm signing up. As a college student, could the fee be lower? Don't worry, it's free. Jiangming laughed. If it's an experience camp, charging wouldn't fit. I can't promise everything, but food and lodging are on us. Fans crowded the comments section with crying poor emojis, and the Tigerfish ops managers watching the back end grinned like Cheshire cats. The big streaming contract they'd signed at the start of the year was starting to look like a steal. If they had to pay only the minimum under the guarantees, they'd still break even. But why stop there? Growing the channel and market share mattered more than a few million. It could push the platform toward an IPO. I don't know what kind of magic JM has, the senior manager sighed. He just chats and answers a few questions and makes a show of it. The head of operations smirked. Don't be jealous. He built his brand on countless coaching videos since 2012. Now he owns the world's top LoL team, NXG. He doesn't have to scramble for content like other streamers. In only 2 years, this young streamer had gone from small-time to a major industry figure. Shu Tao wondered if, to keep him, they'd soon have to add him to the shareholder list. On another channel, Shark TV's flamboyant host with a hairstyle that looked like a missing link between ape and man was in his element, howling and flinging his arms around. Yee-hee! We got it! Brothers, listen, is the retired war god 5-5 Opens mid-strong or not? 55 Kai, fresh off a carry in a 1,000-point challenger match, slid right into his bragging mode. Get subscriptions and gifts, brothers. Tonight I'll push for top 10 on the national server. Open your eyes. He puffed his chest then, seeing the chat demand he go for number 1, immediately deflated a little and sipped water for dramatic effect. National server number 1? Cough. Don't say nonsense, he dramatized. I've been in this division for years. I know how deep it is. Top 10 in high elo is already tough. He leaned into the melodrama. It's not that I'm not trying. The 1,000-point challenger scene has always been brutal. After NXG won S3, genius players flooded into the national server like dumplings. 1,000-point games now are more intense than when I played the TGA Winter Finals. It's not for humans alone. This is Twilight of the Gods. Top 10 is already our ceiling. Brothers, anything higher, you'd have to buy it. No, you'd have to switch people. Then play Yasuo, Brother Kai. Teach us Yasuo. My roommate, before he died, wanted me to play Yasuo in a 1,000-point game. Yasuo's not off limits. He's a trump reserved for crucial climbs. Powerful champions like the Unforgiven are for life and death situations. 55 Kai's gift-catching shtick worked as always. The chat fed him presence and encouragement, and finally, the long-awaited ranked game began. We're in, brothers. Watch me play Fire Shadow Zed. He scanned the player list as people joined. The room notifications popped. Long joined, Moon joined, DoYouTV San joined, Big Pomelo joined. 55 Kai's eyes widened. Holy cow, that's a god-tier lobby. In the game lobby were NXG Black's top laner Long, White Team support Moon, plus OMG's bot and jungler. 55 Kai grinned nervously. Sorry guys, streamer's been eaten of points already. The chat exploded at the matchup. What ridiculous luck for 5-5 Open to get these players in one game. OMG's bot and jungler are okay, but the big ones are Black Team's top and White Team's support. I watched Wei Xiao's stream. Long as an iron wall, can tank 5 people and not die. Moon's Thresh is sick. 5-5 Open, steal Thresh. 55 Kai was blue side first pick. As a mid, first pick isn't ideal, but after asking in chat if someone wanted Thresh and being refused, he swapped with Xiaosan for the 5th slot. Both teams banned Ziggs, Syndra, and Aatrox, some of the stronger picks this patch, and blue took Caitlyn first. Purple immediately locked in Lucian and Lee Sin for the first 2 picks. Lucian, released late last year and heavily promoted by JM's champion explainers, had already shown up in cups and pro play. His EAA, QAA, WA combos were becoming Lucian's signature sequences. When Blue's 2nd and 3rd picks secured Vi and Blitzcrank as jungle and support, 55 Kai, who'd been planning to pick Yasuo on stream for content, thought he might casually grab it later, until Purple insta-locked Yasuo in their 3rd slot. Death is like the wind, always by my side, the Yasuo declared. Holy cow, insta-locking Yasuo in a 1,000-point challenger game. Watch me crush this Yasuo. 55 Kai tried to keep his composure, excited at the thought of turning a challenger Yasuo into fodder. Then he remembered something important. At high elo, matchmaking almost always pairs players of comparable skill. If the blue side featured 5 former or current pro-level players, the purple side would too. A mid who could insta-lock Yasuo in a 1,000-point challenger game was highly unlikely to be a feeder playing experimentals in ranked.